fight. We don't have to kill. Everybody in the whole wide world really just needs to chill. No, we don't have to fuss, no, we don't have to fight.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Just Chill with Oliver George. This is episode 98, and this time around I've got a returning guest who was originally here on episode 14 way back in January of 2020. He's an exceptionally talented photographer whose work has been featured in Esquire, National Geographic, Wired Magazine, and other notable publications. But before we get into it, I want to remind you, if you're watching on YouTube right now and you would prefer an audio-only version of the podcast, you can get that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and other places like that. If you're listening to me on one of those platforms, though, and you didn't realize there was a visual side to this show, I'd encourage you to please come check it out here on YouTube. If you do come over to the visual side of things, I would really appreciate it if you would hit the subscribe button. You don't have to, but it really helps me to keep growing this channel, and I love connecting with new people. So if you're just jumping in now or you've been a supporter for a long time, thank you so much. It really does mean the world to me. If you'd like to reach out, maybe with a cool guest idea or some general feedback about the show, you can hit me up on social media or send me an email at justchillpodcasting@gmail.com. While you're doing that, let me know if you have interest in one of these holofoil stickers with the show's logo on it, and I will mail you one free of charge. Lastly, I got to announce, probably for the last time before it happens, the 100th episode we're doing live at Yuck Yucks. We have an amazing panel of stand-up comics that I'm going to be interviewing, including Derek Sege, who is one of the funniest comics working in Canada today, and local acts like Christina Muehlberger, Jeff Davis, and Kia Mazar. So get your tickets now before they sell out. Hopefully we'll sell out. And I'll have some of these stickers there too and some other stuff to give away. So it should be a great time. Now, back to the man of the hour, as I often say. It's so good to have him back in here. He is one of the most exploratory photographers, I would say. The stuff he does is very artistic, very creative. If he's not taking hyper-realistic photos of wax sculptures of celebrities, he's taking aerial shots of amazing superhighways, or he's working with Matty Matheson, which is another new development I can't wait to talk about. I'm talking about Andrew Lusztyk. Thank you so much for coming back, man.
Thank you very much for having me. I got to say, the introduction is so professional sounding. It made me start to feel nervous to be on the show a little bit. I was like, oh my God, it's like to hear you like go through the whole, promoting all your stuff, all the awesome stuff you're doing, and to just kind of like hear you like, say like, oh, you can hear me on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever. I'm like, oh my God, it's like, it's actually,
this is real.
This is totally. And I don't even, maybe in the last episode we did together, maybe you had that whole spiel beforehand.
I don't think I did.
But it felt, like I felt myself start to get nervous when you were doing all that. It's like,
I'm probably just giving off nervous vibes because, like I was saying before we started, I always, for some reason, get all antsy during the intro part. I don't know why. Maybe because it's just me talking for an extended period of time.
I understand, but your voice is, you've definitely really found your voice. Like it sounds really, really good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Man.
And when you came last time, I think I had 75 subscribers or something, and now we're pushing 2,000. So
good for you, man. That's amazing. Congratulations. I really think that it's such a testament to how good the podcast is, the longevity of it, and how much it's expanded. So I'm really honored to be back on here. Thank you for letting me do this. I'll do this anytime I'm in Ottawa, by the way.
Of course,
I love hanging out with you. So.
Oh, I love reconnecting with you too. And we got to say a shout out to Mr. Thierry Wildgust, who is also a past guest of this show, but another Colonel By alumni. Yeah. So this is kind of like a Beacon Hill reunion here.
It's amazing. Yeah. Thanks for doing this. So
thanks, man, because I know you had to get your kids babysat and all that, so I do appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
My dad is off in Toronto for this weekend, so he couldn't be here, but he did want me to say hi to you and pass on a hello.
Thank you very much. Your dad's a cool guy. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Well, let's talk about everything that's been going on in your life, because you have continued to astound me with your posts on Instagram, and your work is just always flawless.
Thank you. It's really nice to hear that. I definitely don't feel that way. I've been, trying to just keep my head above water. I've been slammed with work this year more than I think I ever have before, and I'm really trying to find time to work on my own creative stuff. But I just feel like, there's so much going on in terms of like the commercial work and advertising, and I feel blessed that I have so much on the go. But it's real tough to just kind of keep myself from freaking out sometimes, and I'd really like to focus a lot more on doing personal work, and that's sort of a big goal of mine for the remainder of the year. But I feel like I've just been like trying not to freak out 90% of the day, every day for the last 3 months.
A little overwhelming.
Oh man, it's really overwhelming. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't show in your work, that's for sure.
Thank you. It was weird. Like I had, the pandemic happen. I was kind of talking about this yesterday, but like the pandemic happened and everything just kind of like ground to a halt. There was like a couple months there where I remember I was living up north in my cottage and just like the email stopped one day, the phone call stopped one day. I didn't get into my car for, the better part of 2 months. I was just kind of like watching it in the, in the driveway of the cottage, just sitting there. And I was just kind of like, what's going to happen? And then, it slowly started to creep back. And then now I just feel like it's like this tidal wave of like never ending emails and phone calls.
Everything's full force
I'm
again.
super lucky. And I know it sounds like I'm like bitching about being successful, but it is a bit overwhelming. And I feel like I'm just like always racing with never enough time. Like it's like, it's tough, man. Like I was watering my plants yesterday. I'm like, fuck, I gotta go. I gotta pack up the car. We gotta go to Ottawa. And like, I just feel it's just this race. And I just feel like it's, I don't know if this keeps going like this, I'm worried I'm going to turn into one of those like,
you didn't come here just for this, though, right?
no,
Okay.
but I would if you invite me. It's a great excuse to see my parents and to see, see the old hood and stuff. So,
Yeah.
my brother's having a summer solstice party.
Cool.
It's really cool.
That's today?
It's today. My brother's, I always say this too, but he's way cooler than I am, and he's got this gorgeous place in Gatineau in Chelsea, and he organizes a winter solstice and then a summer solstice, and this is the summer solstice dinner, and he goes all out. There's like 7 courses. Him and his girlfriend are amazing. Like she bakes and cooks and he cooks, and he's been making stuff for like a week. And after this, my girlfriend and I, our job is to go and pick flowers to like bring like a bouquet to the thing and make a cheese tray, and it's really, really nice.
Very lavish.
It's very lavish.
Cool.
It's very it's kind of like seance-ish too, because it's like a solstice thing. So there's always some kind of ritual that he wants us to do and stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
I'm sure you're going to be tired tonight and full of food.
I think so. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's crazy that the last time you were here was pre-Pandy.
I know, right before.
Well, and we were saying the night before Strombo came on this show too, which was a huge pivotal moment for this program.
I think so too.
I remember texting you after you left and saying like, I think I've got an interview with Strombo happening.
I had a feeling when I came here and like did the, and like I would have done this even if there was no microphones. Like if you wanted to meet up for coffee and talk for an hour, I would love to do that. But like I remember coming here and kind of not knowing what to expect, and I was so blown away by what you're doing down here. And I knew that something like that was just in the cards for you, that you're going to get some like major guest or some major breakthrough. But I remember like the next day you're like, I can't believe it. Strombo-Eve is on my show tonight. And I was just like, wow, that was fast.
Yeah, I think that the episode I did with you the last time was one of the ones I remember feeling like I was finally hitting my stride and really feeling a little more comfortable doing this. Because I watched some of the really single-digit episodes and cringe pretty hard.
But that's cool. Every podcast that has longevity has to have those.
That progression. Yeah, that's true. Well, I'm glad the pandemic is over and we can do this. I mean, for a while we had a glass thing here.
Brutal.
Zoom interviews are, not ideal.
It's weird that, it feels like it was like 10 years ago, but it was just like 2022. I remember like in January, there's usually that like rush to go to the gym after the holidays or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, the gyms were still closed. Like it wasn't that long ago. Like really wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
But it was still full force. Like the masks just came off like in March 2022. And I don't know.
Thank God, though.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I'm with you, man. I had enough of that pretty fast. As a business owner, it was really, really hard to watch like everything just kind of grind to a halt.
Oh, so many businesses went out of business too.
Sure. I'm a photographer, man. Like
but at least you're like freelance. You can sort of pivot to where the work is to some degree, right?
To a point, but it's terrifying to like have that. I mean, in the lead up, like right after I sort of had the last podcast with you, I was building this project, which was going to be the biggest photography project I had ever done. It was through an advertising agency called BBDO, and the client was this furniture company, and it was this big, massive production. It was like, almost $100,000 budget. There's going to be trucks showing up with food and product and, crew, and there's studios rented, and it was like, and like we were kind of working on it with calls every day and back and forth with the client and with the advertising agency right up until the very, very, very last minute. And then one day it was just like, we have to put this on hiatus indefinitely. And it was like a really like soul crushing like moment for me to just realize that like, no, this is it. Like,
did that ever come to fruition, or had to be scrapped?
It came back as like a smaller version of itself in like May of 2020. I had to pretend I was working without anybody in the room. Like we're doing it all over Zoom, which was, I mean, it it was nice to be working again, but it was real weird. And
you had to scale things down.
Scale things down.
Yeah.
It was like a smaller version of itself. And then there was like the big one never happened, but then there's like sort of 3 little ones that kind of added up to the same amount of, budget, but it was still tough. Like we were looking for locations, I remember, and it was all like, consent forms, and certain people wouldn't. It was before the vaccine too, so it was like, there's only so many people allowed on set. It was just such a ball and chain on everybody doing productions that way.
Yeah.
And I feel like film and photography too, like they really erred on the side of like over caution. Like I know a lot of my friends in Toronto work in film in various capacities and special effects or scenic or makeup or whatever. And they were still like well after the mask mandate was lifted, they like really like kept up the like testing and everything like that. I think they really like erred on the side of caution for better or for worse. But like, I feel like everybody who worked in that industry had like a really profound COVID experience. Like
I was going to say everyone in the film and television industry, probably more than most, got swabbed, I think, hundreds and hundreds of times to a point where they're probably just used to it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But we'll see. I mean, I'm super lucky. Like it definitely bounced back for me. A lot of good stuff came out of the pandemic for me as well. Like I think I really had to like sort of like look at who I am and what I want to do with my life and readdress like how much I was drinking and, what kind of person I want to be. And like, not having that like idle time, I think was really good for some people and really bad for some people. And my personal experience was really bad for me. Like I went through, I didn't call it that, but I think looking back on it, like a bit of like a depression, just watching like the sort of like business I had built shrink and contract and like,
and not knowing when it was going to come back. Yeah.
Like I'm at the time I was almost 40 years old and like $500 hand.
So a bit of a midlife crisis, maybe and tied
like,
in there,
and $500 a week, like it's good that nobody got, everyone was getting money. No one's going to starve to death, but like, it's not going to keep my business afloat. Like I had studios and car leases and, like a mortgage and it was just like, I need to be working and it was, it was pretty scary. And I just like sat in a cabin and like drank and talked on the phone with my friends for 2 weeks at the very beginning of it. And that kind of got depressing after a while. And
well, at the beginning, it kind of felt like it was like the apocalypse or something,
a little bit.
And it was just like, are we ever going to come back from this? And then when we realized it wasn't, but it just kept going and going, then it was just the fatigue of like, oh my God, when is this going to turn around? And you'd think, things would open back up for a bit and then it would come back. And yeah, it was such a roller coaster of emotions. I think that if you didn't have a mental health crisis during the pandemic, then you're the standout,
Yeah.
I think almost everybody had some sort of metamorphosis happen to them.
I think so too. I started off really unhealthy and then I got really healthy. Like I just turned all my like feeling sorry for myself into exercise and work.
I was going to say, you look super healthy. Although I thought you looked really healthy the last time you were here. But that was pre-pandemic, I suppose.
Yeah, pre-pandemic. Yeah. And I think I'd just done a month of no drinking when I was on here last. But, now it's like going on 3 years of no drinking. So
oh, shit. Yeah. Well, Thierry hasn't had a drink since like October, right?
Yeah, that's right. October.
Wow.
Congrats, dude. It feels good, huh?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. It's weird. I've drank my face off from the time I knew you guys in high school right up until a few years ago. And like, I feel like I just, it was like trying to swim with like lead shoes on. Like as soon as like the initial, like getting used to not being drunk all the time or hungover all the time went away, but like, just like how easy things seem to have become.
And more energy.
More energy.
Yeah.
I think maybe I threw myself into work a little more than is healthy. Like I just, that hangover, like 2 hours or an hour on either side of the hangover of just kind of like doing nothing, that turned into like, okay, I'm going to respond to the email. I'm going to reach out to this person. And that sort of like, so I think maybe finding some kind of balance where I'm not just like.
You went from alcoholic to workaholic a little bit.
Sort of. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's still way better.
Way better. Absolutely. Like my relationship with my family, my parents, it improved tremendously. But
yeah, this is making me feel like I have shit willpower listening to you two and your long periods.
If I knew how to drink like a normal, like a normal person and like a couple beers at this barbecue I'm going to tonight, for instance, like, I would do it. Like it's not a hindrance and it kind of feels good, like, great. Yeah. But it's like, for me, it's like, I know exactly the path. Like it's like a couple beers turns into a couple beers a night, turns into like a couple beers a night plus getting wasted on the weekend. And then turns into like getting wasted almost every day. And then
I've had those times where like I drink a lot one night and then the next day I justify the hangover drink it'll take the edge off or whatever. And then you're like, oh shit, well, that's another day I'm drinking now.
I almost feel like that was my favorite kind of drinking.
Yeah.
Like my favorite kind of drinking was like
Hair
the
of the
hangover.
dog.
Yeah, the hair of the dog, like the 11 a.m. crack a beer and like it's sunny outside on a Saturday morning.
Oh,
like I
yeah.
still feel nostalgia for it.
Dude, whenever it's sunny out, I am driven to go and hit up a patio. Like it's just innate, you know. But I've struggled with this kind of stuff. I'm sure I mentioned in March when we were doing the podcast, I was planning on not drinking all of April. I think I did like a good week and a half, and then it sort of kind of declined back into regular drinking mode.
It's tricky with the friends. Like that's
Yes,
the part
social
that
interactions.
and it's weird. I'm kind of coming to terms with that now, like almost 3 years into this thing. Like at first, I feel like I succeeded in quitting drinking by and large, you know, knock on wood, because I'm going to do a month off. I'm going to do 3 months off. I'm going to do a week off, and successfully done that. And I knew, and in anticipation of this one, which did, by the way, I wasn't like, I'm never drinking again. I'm like, I'm going to do a month off. A month turned into 6 months. 6 months turned into a year. My life felt better. I'm like, I'm never drinking again. That's kind of where I'm at. But I think that knowing what people were going to be like when you're the guy at the party not holding a beer, like I already had that experience by trying to stop for a few months at a time. So I wasn't like shocked when like the first cottage weekend I went to, I knew what to expect. But now, like 3 years into this thing, where I'm kind of looking around, I'm like, like people don't really reach out to me as much as they used to. And it's because I'm not a guy you can go,
You don't want to
get pissed up with.
Yeah, you're not going to crush beers with them.
No, and I get it. Like that's kind of what I was looking for when I was, drinking.
Well, it's people to like sort of justify their
you feel better
actions
about
by
it.
being surrounded by other people doing the same, you know?
Yeah. So it's cool now. Like I still have an amazing group of friends, but it's like, this guy we go running, or this guy I hit tennis balls with, or this guy, like we
Find
go
other
to the
activities.
gym or whatever. But it's not the same. It's not that same bonding really as like getting wasted and telling secrets. It's not.
No, I hear that. I mean, I'm so vain that honestly, the time that I really reel it in with my drinking is when I start to feel like I'm packing on pounds, or I'm really bloated in the face, or my skin is getting shitty. And then I'm usually able to take like a nice break and go, okay, yeah. But then as soon as I feel like I'm back where I want to be, I'm like, I could go for a beer,
Yeah.
I've earned it now or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a slippery slope.
I look, man, like, listen, I'm the first guy to tell you, like, I loved getting buzzed. I loved the adventure. Like, I've done like,
So you don't smoke weed anymore?
I quit smoking weed when I was like 29.
Oh, I think we talked about this.
Yeah. And like, to be honest, like with the drinking, it's like I actually quit drinking, but with the weed, like here and there, I'll like take a sip of one of those weird weed drinks.
Oh yeah, those are all right.
I was at a concert last summer and I took a puff of a joint, and like it's crazy. It feels like the first time I smoke
like
weed.
you're 13
like it's
again
like
or something.
feels like I'm on fucking acid or something. Like it's like I'm thinking about my life, my parents, my relationships, my I'm thinking about the way that the trees are like combined with the animals that live in them, and it's all part of the cause. Like it's like that full experience.
Yeah.
It's not just like getting high and I can like go do a photo shoot or anything like that. Like, when you get used to it, I was like smoking weed all the time. I'd smoke weed and go into a corporate meeting and do fine because you're just used to it.
Yeah.
But now,
Well, there's a functional pothead for sure. People like Seth Rogen and shit.
Absolutely.
Like
Like, very
some people it works
successful.
for. Yeah.
But then I was like right before my 30th birthday, I smoked a joint and like had like an out of body experience and thought I was having a heart attack. And I'm like, all right,
that's
you
the
know what?
worst.
Fuck this. And
That's some sativa right there.
I don't even know. I mean, I don't even know. It was, we probably talked about this in the last podcast, but regardless, it was like right in the era when like vaporizers had first come out.
So much more potent.
And I'd never tried one before. And I like smoked my friend's vaporizer a bunch and then like stood up and like walked outside, and he was like, okay, man, I gotta go. I got a
You're just
meeting.
like in Narnia
and I
now.
was, and I was like by myself on the side of the road, like not knowing like, like where my
I think you did tell me this story.
Yeah, and then that was it. Like I was kind of like, that's when the smoking weed every day sort of stopped.
What about mushrooms? You ever dabble?
I used to fuck with mushrooms a lot in high school.
But it's been
probably
like-
done mushrooms with you guys at some point.
Yeah, probably. But in your adult life, never gone back down that path?
No, like I like it just stems from like a really bad experience. I had a mushroom freak out when I was probably like 19. It was in Toronto. I was in university. I was living in like university residence, my first year in university, and I had a mushroom freak out, and I was just like, fuck that, I'm not doing it ever again. I've been tempted to.
You can buy them now. Like there's at least 2 stores in Ottawa that are
So
just
hear me
shroom
out.
stores now.
I just remembered this. This is post not drinking. I have a friend of mine, and he's an amazing dude. Like nerds out about every single thing he does. He's one of those guys where if he's like restoring a sailboat right now, and I'm sure when it's done, the sailboat's going to be like fit to sail across the Atlantic. Like, whatever he does is done like super, super well. So he grows mushrooms, and he's an expert at everything. So anyways, but he's like, you got to try them. He's like, I've been microdosing. I feel way better, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't like mushrooms. I freaked out when I was in university. I don't think I should do them. He's like, just take one. You won't even feel it. You won't even feel it.
Well, microdose, yeah.
Dude, I went to dinner on this like microdose, and I'm like sitting there and I'm just like, I'm on fucking shrooms. This is horrible.
You had the full on.
Yeah, like I could feel it, you know what I mean? And
you know what's crazy though? I do think that mushroom trips are so affected by your mindset going into it. So if you're like recalling this bad trip and that's what you're leading into this new experience with, you're for sure going to not enjoy it, you know?
I mean, yeah. And I think that my like general level of being is at like just under freak out 99% of the time at this point in my life, you know? And I just think that doing mushrooms, I don't want to like drive myself to the emergency room and have doctors laughing at me because I'm on mushrooms, you know?
At that point, you just start laughing too.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people, it's funny you say you're always like kind of at maximum,
Lately,
you know, whatever, but
yeah.
a lot of people would attribute psychedelics to alleviating that. And sometimes it is microdosing for sure, but sometimes a macrodose will really just rewire somebody's brain or force them to face a lot of things that they're not letting come to the surface, whether it's trauma or whether it's just emotions you're not addressing, you know?
I hear you. I think I hear
but
you.
It's an overhaul. It's not easy. It can be very jarring, the experience, but sometimes have, you know, really profound outcomes.
I think what it comes down to, I don't like the feeling of being out of control.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. And I know that there's some kind of like probably like underlying psychological thing where like I feel like I need to have like the world by the horns, but I don't.
I think it's something with getting older because when we were teenagers, we wanted that out of control feeling. You wanted to be taken on a magical roller coaster ride. And now I mean, even with me, I do still smoke weed a lot, but I'm getting the weed that's like 7% THC, mainly CBD. Like Kelly, she'll hit weed that's too strong for me. You know, I have the same kind of anxiety freakouts if I get the really strong stuff.
Yeah.
So I do enjoy it. It's more habitual, I think. I just like, you know, I mean, I used to smoke cigarettes and I transitioned out of that with joints, and now I pretty much don't smoke joints. I'm usually just on the vape. So I've gotten healthier in the way that I do these things. But
do you do a lot of exercise and stuff like that?
yeah, I exercise almost every day. I'd say at least like 5 out of 7 days in the week. I do.
That's amazing. What kind of stuff are you doing?
Like calisthenic jail workout type things I find
love
on
that.
YouTube. They're usually like half an hour or something. I'll switch one day. I'll do like a dumbbell workout. The next day I'll just do, you know, cardio or whatever. Try to keep it varied.
Yeah, I love the jail workouts.
Yeah.
There's a park system in Toronto that was like implemented in the last 10 years where they basically added like a little jail gym in like a
Chin
bunch
up
of
bars and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like a bunch of different parks around the city.
That's awesome.
And like,
There's a bunch of fit hobos now.
For sure. And like being like a boring sober guy, like one of my favorite things to do is to like bike around and just pull up to one of them and like do like a 15-minute, 20-minute workout and then get back on my bike and keep going.
Nice.
And they're like kind of scattered around the city. There's one like right beside my house with a giant train line that's beside it. So you'll be like doing chin-ups with like a massive like Canada National locomotive going
That's
by.
cool.
It feels like you know, you're a lot harder than you actually are.
Trains are pretty badass.
I love it, man. It's one of my the graphics about them, like the whole thing, and like
And when somebody bombs a train with like a sick piece.
absolutely, I have a real affinity for like mid-century graphic design, and I think that a lot of that stuff is really showcased on trains and locomotives. And I think because it goes, there's a commonality between the sort of visual environment between so many cities because those trains are moving.
Yeah.
You know, so you'll see
They're
that
constant. Yeah.
You'll see that CN logo the same here as in Winnipeg, as in Montreal, as in Halifax, and I think that like that's why that iconography I think really resonates with people, and I love that stuff.
Well, and the graffiti, I'm sure, resonates with you a lot too, because you were a big hip hop head back in the day.
Yeah, of course, dude.
Or still are probably.
Yeah, of course.
You used to freestyle with Spender and shit, right?
I absolutely did. Don't tell anybody.
And Asin.
Yeah, I'm still in touch with Asin.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's a really cool dude, man. He's big into bird watching. And
Not the greatest name, I'm going to be honest.
I think
I would
maybe
kind of be a little pissed at my parents if the first 3 letters of my name were ass.
I think when he's in Bulgaria, maybe it's like the coolest name.
It's
out
more
there.
common, yeah.
I don't know. I actually don't know. But I mean, maybe Asin in Bulgaria is like being called Rick,
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Run of the mill sort of.
Yeah, maybe. I have no idea. But yeah, he's a big birding photographer. So
cool.
I'd message back and forth with him when he takes photographs of owls.
He was the guy we used to buy weed off of.
Yeah, I never bought weed off him, but
well, no, I'm younger than you. We were in like grade 9, and he was like the older dude where he'd be like, "Come meet me at my backyard" or whatever. Yeah. And we used to have a whole joke about him spraying the weed with Windex because it would always get us really high, but it always smelled really fucking weird.
I mean, he's a guy that like never left Beacon Hill. Like still lives in the same place in that same neighborhood, and like
that's where I grew up.
Yeah. He lives in that same group of buildings.
I'm glad we didn't say his last name at this point. We're talking a lot of.
I mean, you should have him on.
Yeah.
He's got a lot. He's got a really good attitude. I think he's just seen that neighborhood the whole time since like for that 25 years or 23 years or whatever since high school. Like he's just been there the whole time.
I would wonder how he would remember me because I'm sure he remembers me as a little fiend.
I wonder.
Well, because I got into weed so hard when I did. Like I got to high school, coming out of junior high, I was kind of like junior high. I wasn't like picked on or anything.
Did you go to Monroe?
No, I went to Lester B for 2 years.
You went to Lester B?
Yeah, because I came from TD McGee, which was a Catholic school for whatever reason. I'm not Catholic, but and middle school, I didn't get picked on or anything, but I never really felt like I knew who I was or who I fit in with. So when I got to high school, it was new school, new opportunity, and I just fell for all the peer pressure immediately. I was smoking cigarettes right away, and I was a stoner by like Christmas time. And
I was talking to Jeff Townsend.
Yeah,
really awesome dude too. Like one of the people I'm still like
someone who's been sober for a long time.
For a long time.
Yeah,
and really like sort of like active in the like sober community.
Oh, nice.
Like so
he's always been a sweet guy.
Such a sweet guy. Really hyper intelligent dude. Like and always kind of has been. Like he's a guy who like definitely did shrooms and drank and like hung on for dear life when he was in high school. But like I would also like remember like getting real stoned or really fucked up with him and like talk about really interesting stuff when we were like 16, 17 years old. Like he's a really talented writer.
A deep guy.
Deep guy. What the fuck were we talking about? Sorry.
Shit. We're talking about Asin.
Talking about
all these people that no one's going to know who we're talking about. So let's hope these stories are good. Yeah. Oh.
Anyways, well, shout out to Jeff Townsend. Great guy. And yeah.
I'll leave it in. I know last time you came, you did like a riff on Beacon Hill, and I ended up editing it out because I was still new at the show, and I was like, no one's going to want to hear about this little neighborhood in Ottawa.
I feel like I sometimes forget that the headphones are on and we're just like talking about high school shit that nobody.
I should have left it in though because I remember I told you that after and you were like really bummed out that I cut it out.
Oh man, I don't even remember that. But
you were talking about coming back to the hood and kind of cruising around and just like the nostalgic vibes.
And of course, and I was saying this yesterday, but it feels like just some museum of my childhood. Like I really, I wish there was something I can contribute like photographically or visually that would sort of like tell the story to people that aren't from there because I know everybody maybe feels like this about where they're from, but I just feel that there's like a magic to that whole.
Beacon Hill is special for sure.
It is special. Like there is something incredible about it. It's the real deal.
A lot of big people have come through here too, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, everyone would think of Tom Green probably first.
Brian Adams.
Brian Adams went to our school for like a year, I think, or something.
I don't know.
But Tom Cruise went to Robert Hopkins, whose real last name is Maypother. I don't know if you knew that.
I did know that. Yeah. I guess, and it's also just like it just looks like an iconic sort of neighborhood that when you close your eyes and you think about what all the movies we grew up watching, it was like it looks like that.
Yeah.
It looks like Wonder Years.
Picturesque.
Yeah. It's
well,
awesome.
I'm actually we were talking about how my wedding is next week. Mm-hmm. We're getting married at my folks' place in Beacon Hill, so should be fun. Grafton Crescent.
That's awesome. Yeah. Remind me which one Grafton is.
It's off of Eastvale, and it has it's a little crescent, and at the very end, there's like a little path that goes through and connects to Ogilvy. You know that like path people will get high in. And,
of course.
Yeah.
I know exactly.
So Grafton is the other street on the other side of that. Yeah.
You know what I thought about too? Just going into our even more esoteric conversation about the neighborhood that we grew up. But it's like it would be like I would love to just walk through those halls again of Colonel By.
Yeah.
And I stayed in touch with a few of the teachers there and stuff like that. But even there, like probably teetering on retirement, if not retired.
Yeah.
Now. So it's just I wish I would have done it like 10 years ago and like walked.
I'm sure if you went and just said, hey, like maybe someone might need to chaperone you around since you're a strange man coming in. But I'm sure if you said, hey, look, I'm an alumni. Is it cool if I take a look around?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I'd be curious to see if it looks like I remember it.
Yeah, I guess it depends how sketchy they think you are.
I'll dress nice.
I went there once because I was trying desperately to get in touch with my old history teacher.
Who was your old history teacher?
Mr. Parsons. You know Mr. Parsons? He was a really young guy at the time. I think he was like early 30s maybe. And I finally found him. He's at a different school now out here in the West End. And I went to that school in person to the office to try to get a hold of him. And that was just a weird experience. It wasn't even the school that I used to go to, but just walking through a school. It was right before like morning announcements and shit. So everyone was kind of going to and from their lockers. And right before I get to the office, about 10 feet away, O Canada starts playing. So I have to just stand there. And it was very, weird to feel that like that age again almost.
I know. I haven't, and like being somebody who hasn't been in the scholastic system whatsoever, my only interactions with anything, like even being in those buildings or in those rooms, is when I go to vote, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But I still like, I know when like the waft of that like cleaning agent that they use on the hallways hits me in the face, and like just like the smell of like those gymnasiums and stuff like that, it's super nostalgic. Like, it's incredible. Like the I don't know, the
I wish constantly
memory
that I could go back and relive those years with my adult brain, because all the social stuff would have been so fucking easy compared to like all the nerve-wracking moments you had back then.
I'm not going to say the name, but were you at that party where that guy's house got trashed? That famous one? Were you there, Terry?
Not sure.
That's too vague. I don't know.
There was like, it was off of La Vérandre. It was like a full blown, like the guy like got locked in his basement, and somebody like crapped in a bowl, put it in the microwave. Like,
why would
there's
anyone do that?
Ketchup on the wall. I saw somebody like go through the drywall, like
Those still make more sense than putting a bowl of shit in the microwave. That's bad for everyone.
So it was like $100,000 worth of damage. It was insane. Jesus. Like people were like, I remember like people like ripping the VCR out of the wall and like taking it home. It was like a full blown.
Fuck. That's that mob mentality once it really starts.
What's interesting about that incident is that it was all started through that Escape software. You guys remember that?
Vaguely.
It was like this like pilot program that they started at our high school that failed, but it was like an early version of like a network where you can like communicate with your teachers and communicate with your peers. There was a messenger function. Okay. I never used it, but a lot of people did, and they basically broadcast the fact that this guy was going to have a party on Escape, and then like, you know, it went from like 20 people were supposed to be there to like 1,000 people showed up, and the house got absolutely mauled.
Cops came, I'm assuming.
I don't even remember if the cops came, but I remember going there the next day, and like the guy's parents had like come home from their vacation because the house was so fucked up, and like they were like mopping up, and like there's like eggs all over the roof and in the windows, and it was just like
they probably just threw out the microwave.
I would hope so. Yeah, nuts.
No one's cooking any popcorn in that motherfucker after.
But what made me think of it is like you saying like going back with an adult brain and being able to like transplant it into me when I was my brain when I was 16. Like there's
just in how I interacted with people, even, you know, you're so nervous at that age, especially with women, and I feel like now I'm not really afraid to talk to anyone, you know.
I feel the same. I'm way more confident now, I think. But yeah, when you're 16, you're so insecure and unsure of yourself, and you know you get.
I don't even know if for me it's confidence as much as just like lack of that fear. So I don't know if that necessarily equates to confidence. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I'm still a pretty insecure person. I'm like, fuck it. That's kind of more my attitude. Like, what's the worst that can happen if I talk to this person?
Right.
You know? I wouldn't say I'm confident though.
I can fake it though.
Yeah,
as an adult,
yeah.
like I can kind of like fake confidence through anything, I feel. Whereas that age, I was just like, you know, real insecure
and shit,
I couldn't hide it. And also like, I would love to give myself the advice of like, hey dude, don't smoke weed every fucking day.
Yeah. So,
Like, you know, like how much time did I waste? My relationship with my parents suffered because I wouldn't like want to be around them because I was stoned and I didn't want to get in trouble. And then like, you know how it's like trying to talk to girls when you're stoned. It's like next to impossible for me anyway. It's like next to impossible.
You figured out how to talk to girls though. I should say Rena here, your girlfriend is here because people probably saw her on the shot of Thierry and wondering who's this random stranger. But thank you for coming. But no, yeah, you were single last time you came, I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay. How long have you guys been together, if I can ask?
Well,
is this a new romance?
Newish.
Newish.
But
okay.
I've known Rena for 4 years.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
A good foundation there. Then.
Good foundation.
Nice.
Yeah. The pandemic ruined that actually because she was living in a different town and I was living up north. So yeah,
that sucks.
Yeah, it was weird. But no, it's great.
If you can overcome long distance stuff, though, then that's tried and true.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's really nice to reconnect with somebody familiar too. I think it makes it a lot easier.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and just like starting from scratch.
Jumping back to the school stuff, before I forget, I wanted to ask you if you remember there was a janitor named Al who was the coolest fucking guy.
Hey man, I don't even know if we should talk about that.
Well, we're not going to say his last name. I don't even know his last name.
So there's a janitor at our school, and he loved smoking weed, and
he loved I think living vicariously through the teens to a degree, which was probably not legally smart for him.
Definitely
he showed up at house parties. This guy was in his mid 40s, and he was coming to teenage house parties.
I was there the day his father passed away.
Oh no, he was a sweet guy.
Sweet guy,
yeah, really nice dude.
A little pervy about the girls, maybe.
Oh, was he? I don't remember that.
I don't know. Yeah. But I was I got to know him, right? He dropped me off at school. Or dropped me off at my parents' house sometimes after. He was a really, really sweet guy. And I was there, and I was like a 17-year-old kid, and he was, like you said, like a 43-year-old or 45-year-old man.
He had kind of a simple vibe too. I don't want to say he was mentally challenging, but he was a very simple man.
A very simple man. I know what you mean. And he'd always, his mantra was like, yeah, I did it all just pushing a broom. I did it all just pushing a broom, because he was a janitor, and he had a truck and a house, and I don't know if he was married. I can't remember, but he just was really proud of his accomplishments. And he's just like, yeah, I did it all pushing a broom. I did it all pushing a broom.
And he said hello to everybody.
He did.
Super friendly.
But he would just let us do whatever the fuck we wanted. It was crazy. I remember just partying in the school.
Dude, we showed up once. I think I was with Stefan and Jesse Arnold and a couple other people. And we showed up on a Saturday night, probably midnight or something. We were on mushrooms, smoking hash, all this stuff. He let us go in the gym and play floor hockey, smoking cigarettes in there, do whatever the fuck we wanted.
It was crazy.
He's like, it'll air out by Monday. We're like, all right.
It was crazy.
You're the one whose ass is on the line.
I know. I remember getting high in the science lab. Same thing.
I wonder if we talked about this last time. This is something I was worried about, because we did a long podcast, I think, last time, and we're going to go over some familiar territory, I'm sure.
Oh, it's fine. I love talking about this stuff.
Well, and a lot of people didn't listen to the older episodes, so that's another reason I wanted to have you back on. It's I've got a bit more of an audience now, so.
I feel really happy to be here, man. It was real nice just to chill out and talk, and I don't know, I just don't do it enough with people, and I think the microphones kind of force you to keep talking.
Well, you're not on your phone, right?
Yeah.
That's a huge one.
Going back to Al, the Beacon Hill Arms, that pub that was at the Beacon Hill Mall. I mean, I was 17, getting wasted there all the time, and me and Al were having a beer, man to man talk, and his dad had just passed away, and I remember he was crying. I was it was my first experience, being
it's male vulnerability.
Yeah, man. I was like, wow,
that's huge though.
Yeah.
That's impactful on a young boy.
I remember it. I'll remember it forever. I was just like, man, there's 40-year-old man confiding in me and crying. It was real. Yeah. But
I got the vibe he didn't have a lot of people in his life. You know what I mean?
Definitely not.
I don't know. I hope he's still out there.
Shout out to Al.
Yeah, I hope he's still alive. I don't know, because he'd be in his 70s or something right now, or 60.
So.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember doing a lot of skateboarding in the hallways there, because he was just real cool. And
he didn't give
it's
a
a
shit.
super smooth surface. I'd have my longboard, and I'd just be cruising the full lengths of the hallways with nothing to impede you. So it was a lot of fun. It was really tranquil. Yeah, it was a cool guy.
Do you still smoke weed, Terry?
I went to a Just Got Land comedy show, and I bought a $5 pre-rolled joint.
Yeah.
But other than that, I took 4 puffs at a buddy's house, but really no. So I kind of just dropped everything in October. I was like, I don't really need this stuff.
Yeah, he's told me that he dabbled, smoked a couple tokes here and there, but generally it sounded like he didn't really even enjoy it that much, right? Are you planning on drinking at the wedding? I thought you told me that. Or you're on the fence?
Yeah.
But now it's been so long.
And then I heard you upstairs, you're like, we bought all this alcohol. I was like, I remember liking alcohol.
We're going to have a pizza bar. We ordered 12 pizzas or something too, and we got to have a pretzel stand. It's going to be sick.
Yeah, it's not to get preachy, but I just feel every aspect of my life has gotten better because of not drinking, and every time I'm just but what? Why jeopardize it? You know?
So here, I'm going to be vulnerable here, and I think that I've had a lot of back and forth about my drinking, and it's never gotten to the point where it's fucking up my life, and I almost sometimes wish it would, because if you hit that rock bottom, you have no other choice but to kind of turn around. And I think even now there's in the back of my head this feeling that I'm pretty positive I'm going to quit drinking at some point. And I'm just not ready to say goodbye, because I think that when I do, it's going to be like what you guys are experiencing, where you're like, I don't think I'm going to go back. Like, I feel that everything will get improved, and I'm just not going to want to turn back. And because I know that, it's like, I don't want to say farewell yet, or there's always something. It's like, well, I want to have some drinks at the wedding, or, oh, we're going to go on a honeymoon. It might be in England. I want to hit up the pubs. There's always, but those justifications could probably go on forever. So
I don't know. It's weird. Like I was, there's a point in my life when somebody's like, you can go on a world vacation. You can go anywhere in the world for 2 weeks, 5-star hotel, everything paid for. You can do whatever you want, but you just can't drink. And I don't even know if I'd want to go. I'd be like, what the fuck? Why would I want to go on vacation and not be able to drink? And I've been now being sober for almost 3 years, and having gone on vacations, and like it just changes what you do, It just changes the way you enjoy stuff. Like, you fill your time completely differently. I really live for the mornings. Like, I love waking up and not feeling like shit, and I can like get a lot done and smell the air. There's this incredible guilt I used to feel. It would be like a beautiful day, and I was outside, and like the sun's shining, and I see like a mom and her daughter like bike by, or some guy jogging, or people like playing tennis at the park by my house, and I'm like, it's gorgeous.
The simple beauties in life.
Simple beauties, and I can't enjoy it because it feels like my head's in a vice, and I feel anxious, and I hate it, And it's so like I think that you just learn to enjoy life in a completely different way. And well,
when you were talking about going back and telling yourself to not smoke weed so much, I've thought about that lately. In that, like, I'm like, I wonder if I don't have that many or as many memories as I would if I hadn't have smoked so much weed, because it definitely impairs your short-term memory. So you're not really forming memories in the same capacity that you would if you were sober. So I've looked back and gone like, there's a lot of periods in my life that are pretty fuzzy.
For sure. Yeah.
Only the standout, like, high adrenaline moments or those types of things that come back crystal clear.
I think you see it like the life that you've lived in these sort of like moments and flashes. Like, if somebody like shouts out a year and they're like 2011, like on the jump, without like looking at my phone or thinking about a calendar or anything like that. Like, it's like really like maybe like 2 visual photos that I have in my head. Snapshots. If somebody says like 2008, I'm like, I get
a lot of memories when I'm like not quite asleep, but like starting to drift off, and my subconscious is coming in a little bit, and just it's sort of like meditative, I guess, when you're starting to drift off into sleep. That's when I'll have like a flash of somebody's house that I didn't even remember the person, and all of a sudden I can picture their living room, in vivid detail. Yeah. I don't know why it comes to me like that, but.
Should we talk about something other than high school?
Yeah, well, I mean, anyone who watches this show knows that it can go anywhere. Okay, so, cool. And I know I would enjoy this still. So
awesome.
But yes, we should talk about your photography. That is definitely what I had here first. I wanted actually to start by talking about working with Matty Matheson on his cookware line, and because you took a bunch of really cool pics, but also everything I've seen from him online, he seems like a very, interesting individual, really colorful personality. And I was just wondering if he's as chill as he seems, and if you had any like favorite memories from that shoot.
I've worked with him on a bunch of different shoots. We've probably done like 4 or 5 different individual photo shoots. The last one that we did for his cookware line, which was called Matty at Home, was actually at his, you'd probably hate to hear me say this, but at his like estate in Fort Erie, which is like
sizable.
Yeah, it's just like a country home. And he's got a little farm there. There's like there's like vegetables growing, and he's got like a beautiful house, nice big kitchen. His family's there, and we got to shoot portraits of them like as well. And we set up like a beautiful long sort of harvest table with all his cookware on it, and like shot his kids like eating dinner, like pretending to eat dinner, and
one of him on the shitter.
One of him on the shitter, yeah.
All his tattoos.
Yeah, So I think that like the way that I kind of came into that whole orbit was through my friend Brian Riche, who owns this company called Castor Design, and him and Matty Matheson have been friends since they're like since 20 years ago, and he kind of like started working with Matty Matheson. He opened up a restaurant. Matty Matheson was the chef. Then they opened up a place called Parts and Labor, which in Toronto was like a really famous institution. It was a really sort of high-end French bistro on the top floor, and then underneath the restaurant was like a low ceiling nightclub with like a hip hop night and a punk night and a thrash night. And
Sweet.
So you had this like crazy high-low dichotomy where upstairs there's people like
fine dining,
eating like $40-$50 steaks, and then downstairs there's kids like probably doing blow and like and crowd surfing, and like seriously, and they all shared the same washroom. So the washroom was like all interconnected. So you had like you could not go. There's no separation. So like the kids with the tattoos partying had to go and like have shared the same washroom as the ad executives that were eating their like, $500 dinners. And
Let's be honest, some ad executives are also doing blow.
there's definitely crossover. And some of the ad executives look like the kids that are crowd surfing too. It's
These days, yeah.
And then, this wasn't that long ago. This is true then too. But so Brian and I worked together a bunch on a series of Castor photo shoots. He's an incredible product designer, and he's a real big inspiration of mine. Really, really smart, brilliant dude. He was originally a stone carver. Then he opened up these restaurants. He's just a multifaceted, really interesting guy. Grew up in Sudbury, and then he introduced me to Matty, and him and I. Worked on these Matty Matheson photo shoots, and the first one was the cast iron pan. He designed all the products, my friend Brian did, and then Matty would promote them, and then so that's sort of where that all came out. And Matty is absolutely like a full blown professional. Like he's in front of the camera all the time, and in a weird way, I think that kind of like. I feel like it puts pressure on me because it's not somebody who is just going to be wowed by seeing themselves in a decently lit photo on the screen or on camera, right?
Yeah.
Like if I took a photo of you and I set it up a little bit and I made the light nice and and you'd be like, dude, that's such a great portrait. Thank you so much. Because I know how to do that. I know how to make somebody look interesting. But somebody like Matty Matheson, who's photographed, first of all, looks really interesting. Like, he's a 250-pound tattooed head to toe. It looks like a Viking. Like he's just a really interesting looking guy,
or a biker,
or whatever, right? And then add to that somebody who's been shot by really talented, amazing photographers for like most of their life at this point.
He seems like a big lovable teddy bear, though.
He is, for sure.
Yeah.
And he's exactly like he seems. Like he's loud.
He's genuine.
He's loud. Doesn't give a fuck. You kind of know if he likes you or likes what's going on the minute he enters the room. But yeah, I think that's the point. Like that's the intimidating factor about photographing somebody like that, is that like they're not going to be like, that's amazing just because they see themselves on camera. So I think the bar is pretty high, and that's one thing I'll say about working with him, is that like it's an honor to be able to shoot somebody like that, but it's also a little bit intimidating because the bar is really high. They're used to getting their photo taken. They're used to getting photographed for covers of magazines.
You have competition essentially in their mind.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the other thing that's really interesting about it is that you add to that the creative direction that comes from Brian, who has this like encyclopedic knowledge about art history, about design, about restaurants, about all this stuff, about photography, about cinema. And they're kind of pushing the direction of the shoot, and their input is absolutely what's going to make this that much more special. Like we did one photo shoot for Matty Matheson Cookware probably a year and a half ago at this point. We shot it in Toronto, and it was inspired by the Dutch masters paintings, so like the Vermeers and Rembrandt and Brian, that was what he brought. He was like, I want to make this look like
that
like the Milkmaid, or like these famous, historical art paintings. And I could look at that and sort of figure out how to mimic the lighting, but it's not my idea. And that goes for a lot of the work that I do creatively with advertising, or you can always sort of add to it, but so often the brilliant product that comes out it's the input of the creative department or the creative person that really makes it special. It's not like it's independent of that. Like I shoot my own stuff, obviously. I think that I can definitely jive off of what they're suggesting, but I think so often, like when you see an advertisement or you see a poster, like it's the group effort that makes it really good. And I think that those photos of Matty Matheson, that you can't separate the fact that the creative came from a really high level.
But that must be a nice change of pace when you're doing solo work, and then you can all of a sudden collaborate with other talented people.
If it's good, it's magical. If it's bad, it's torture.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That's the way I would describe it.
Yeah.
And in the case of the stuff with Matty Matheson, it's like you've got, what could be one of the coolest brands around, plus one of the greatest creative minds with my friend Brian. And then you got Matty Matheson, who's a super interesting guy who knows how to turn it on in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And it's just like this.
All the stars are aligned.
All the stars are aligning.
Yeah.
But it's still stressful. I think that a lot of what I do is I stress myself out. But I mean, going into those shoots, I'm not like.
But that's because you care so much. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I care so much, but it's also driving me crazy.
Yeah.
And I got to be careful because I don't want to waste my life just fucking, tensed up.
Yeah.
Worried.
I can very much relate to that.
Yeah.
I think that that's like something that you do like achieve though through getting older. That's why there's so many old people that seem so zen, is because they've had those extra decades on us to keep having those conversations with themselves and try to like amp down the stress and the self-judgment and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, Rena can attest to this too, but like we'll be sitting there and I'll get one shitty email and it'll like just throw me into a fucking throw me in a tailspin, you know?
I'm
and like, I want to get to a point where that's not the case. You know what I mean? Like I want to get to a point where like I can let that shit slide off my shoulder.
I'm also a very bad person when it comes to like lingering things. Like I always, if there is a problem, I want to just deal with it, you know, and figure it out. But sometimes you can't. Sometimes there's time sensitive things or you need other people to be in agreement to want to work forward and move forward on those. You know what I'm saying? Like when something is, you have to just wait and go like that anticipation.
That's a question for you. Like, do you find having kids helps you with that?
Well, having kids, you definitely have to start to learn to go with the flow a little more. And especially now that they're becoming teenagers, my oldest kids, it's like learning to like let go and let them have some freedom, because you don't want to keep them locked up. You know, you want them to have those life experiences. But at the same time, I'm like, I am the guy where my daughter just went for a sleepover and she said, you know, so-and-so's mom is picking us up and driving us there. And even that for me, I'm like, I don't know how, like what kind of driver she is. This is my child. If she gets in an accident, I'm never going to forgive myself, you know, but you don't have control over the universe. And eventually, you know, give it another 5 years, they're going to be
in college,
full adults doing whatever the fuck they want. And I won't even be able to stop them if I want to. So yeah, it's step by step. I'm learning to try to be, you know, more accepting of just how things unfold. You know, you can still obviously input in the situation and try to be a good dad and all that, but yeah, you know, it does force you to accept that you can't control everything.
Yeah, it's something I'm curious about. Like, because with all this stuff that I got going on, sometimes I'm like, imagine trying to do all this plus kids. Like, I'm barely hanging on to my sanity. You know, like I feel like I don't have time to like, you know, take a shower and do my laundry because my schedule's so filled up with shit that I got going on. And
well, I'm blessed in my partnership with Kelly. Like, you know, she works full time. She's amazing at her job, which allows me to work. You know, I pick up shifts at the hospital when she's not working, but I don't work anywhere near the hours she does. So parenting has always kind of been my main focus. And then I started to incorporate this stuff and stand-up comedy and all that. But I actually have, you know, I'm still very busy, but I have some time in a way that you probably wouldn't working full time, you know?
Yeah.
And I can't thank her enough as a partner for allowing me to chase my creative goals and spend all that time with our kids. And
for sure.
Yeah.
Have you thought about like visiting like Los Angeles or like Austin, Texas, or have you gone to any of those rooms? Like have you gone to like the Cellar, like any?
Oh, you're talking about like to do stand up? Oh yeah.
Not even to, like, of course to go perform, but also just to go and like watch and stuff. Like,
yeah. The Comedy Store is one of those places. It's like a dream place. I would love to go. And now all the stuff that's happening in Austin with the Mothership and the Vulcan Gas Company and places like that. Like I would love to go to any of those. Watch a Kill Tony show or something.
I've been to the Comedy Store 3 times.
Wow. And every night it's all bangers. Like
it's incredible.
It's fucking crazy.
Incredible.
The lineups are like,
it's incredible. But I was gonna say, if I ever do find myself in LA, if we could line it up somehow, like there's nobody I'd rather go check it out. Like,
hell yeah.
Yeah. Like if you want to just go for like the good thing about LA, it's like, it's pretty easy. Like at least from Toronto, there's like multiple flights a day. It's like, I kind of know my way around and like,
nice.
Yeah. Like, and just, you can go for 2 nights and it's not the end of the world because the flight's only like 4.5 hours or something like that. So yeah.
That sounds badass.
Think about it.
I've always wanted to hit up Long Beach and, you know, San Diego would be pretty cool too. But
I've never been to San Diego, and Long Beach is somewhere I've only been once. I've never like really gone and like checked it out. But
I want to go to all the Sublime haunts and places they used to play and stuff. I'm a big Sublime nerd, so that's part of it.
That'd be really cool.
But yeah, man, that sounds fantastic. Kelly and I are actually trying to figure out where we're going to go for our honeymoon and
go to Los Angeles.
That's a place we've very much been debating. We would be going end of September is when she got vacation time.
Great time of year to go too, man. And what I'll say about LA is like I've been there a bunch now, and it's, as much as like people want to shit on it, and like as much as like, you know, it's got like there's like almost like a stigma about it. Like there's no other place I've ever been where I felt like I got there.
Stigma in what way? Sorry.
Well, just that people are douchey,
like phony, like Hollywood types.
People are douchey. That's like this.
Well, because there's also the stigma that it's a very like you know, democratic place, very liberal sort of. You know, the other states that aren't that way, I've heard kind of shit on California.
For sure. I mean, I'm not particularly bothered by that, but I mean, I guess if you're some like diehard Republican who, like, you know, maybe. But for me, I think that's. I mean, it's anyway. It's a place that like as soon as I went there, I feel like I'd been there before, just because it is like, you know, it's the template of like the whole like Western experience. So like, you know, you'll be driving down, you see like a 7-Eleven with like a palm tree with like a cool car parked like, just off the side of the highway, and you're like, man, everything looks like a fucking movie.
Am I in Encino, man?
That's what I'm saying. Like it all looks like you're in a movie. Like it feels surreal. I've never been to any other city in the world that I'm like it's its own thing. It's almost like it's its own country, you know? It's so vast when there's like almost like multiple downtowns and
Venice Beach and
of course.
Yeah.
And that's a place you actually want to go. That's like an hour from like, you know, from Burbank or whatever. And it's like this never ending like playground. It's incredible. I think that would be a really cool place for you guys to go for your honeymoon. I honestly think you'll be blown away. Like I love taking people there for the first time and showing them as well and like watching their reaction. Like I did a really cool trip there with my brother probably in like 2015. I was part of an art show and we went and checked it all out and went to the Comedy Store and it's just it's a magical place that everybody should see that's like grown up, you know, watching movies basically. It's incredible.
I love the history of all that. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Or bands like The Doors and stuff like that. I'd love to find like Jim Morrison's old apartment or something.
You should walk the Sunset Strip, you know what I mean? Like see it on like
Whiskey
a Friday
Go-Go.
It's all there.
Yeah.
You know, it's all there. And I can give you like a couple places to go to check out as well.
Crazy.
Like,
well, the other front runners are like Ireland or England. Like I'm Irish, I have my citizenship. I've never been there.
But that's never like go
there when I'm 60 or something.
Sure, but not even. Like I mean, go there next summer. But like I think like as a person who's into comedy and like is into, you know, just sort of like
pop culture
and kitsch and all the stuff that we love. Like I think you'll be blown away, man.
Yeah, it's always been on my bucket list.
Yeah,
I think I get tainted a little bit by just the news and shit when I see like another shooting in the U.S. and I'm like, oh, people got shot on the beach. Like what? I don't think it's likely, but my brain always goes like, well, fuck.
I don't know. I think you can get struck by lightning, you can get hit by a meteor. Like nobody's asking you to obviously like, you know, go on vacation to like, you know,
Compton,
Eastern Ukraine. Right? But it's not like, I don't know. I think that it's about as safe.
It's played up maybe a little bit.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I mean, you'll be struck by like the level of homelessness and stuff like that. It's like it's pretty in your face. Like in Los Angeles, I went like after the pandemic too, and it like definitely like some of that hype is true. Like it is pretty crazy, like the level of homelessness. But like, I don't know. It doesn't mean that it's not one of the best cities in the world. Like it's incredible. And it's huge too. Like it's not, you can go to Montreal for the weekend and be like, yeah, Montreal, this vibe. Like you can go to Los Angeles and it's like almost like being like, you know, it's like Los Angeles is almost like being like, have you been to, I don't know, like
so many different sections.
And you'll never see it all. You know what I mean? You can go to like Santa Monica and have a completely different experience than if you go to Long Beach, then if you go to Venice, then like it's all like, it's like these like miniature cities within a giant
You need like
city.
a month there probably. Yeah.
But you can go for 2 nights and go and be
go
awesome.
back again the next year.
You'll get a bit of the, you know, you get a bit of the vibe. And
I think we're looking at like 5 days, whatever we do probably.
that sounds perfect, man. Yeah. You might even have a direct flight from Ottawa.
Damn. All right. Well, I might follow up on
That's
that.
my vote.
Yeah. Okay. Shit. You're convincing me here. Well, speaking of travel, that was actually kind of the next thing I wanted to talk to you about because you travel to shoot a lot. And I saw this gnarly castle in Germany, I think it was. It looked like it was Transylvania, like Dracula's castle or something. But
so that is, I always pronounce it wrong. It's called Neuschwanstein or something like that.
I can understand why you struggle with that.
The name's weird. Anyway, I was in Bavaria visiting my friend, and it's like going to Niagara Falls for people in Germany because it's like a corny, you know, tourist trap.
Everyone's
place,
done it,
right?
yeah.
And it's actually it was sort of what the Disney castle was modeled after. It was that castle.
Oh, wow.
The history of it's really weird. It was built in the 1800s. It's not that old, by some like weird, eccentric German king who built it for himself. And I don't even know if he ever lived in it. It was like almost like this like failed, crazy mega project that was like people died building it, and he spent his entire family fortune on it. And then I think he passed away before it was ever even like completed.
Oh, shit.
But it's incredible. It's in a valley. It's, you know, the situation's beautiful. And my friend Ava and I and her boyfriend Matt were like, let's just go check it out. It's an hour from where we're skiing. I don't even know if they'd ever been there before. If they had,
It's just like a museum now or something.
Sort of.
Like No one lives there, though?
Nobody
No,
lives
okay.
there. And there's like a lot of
What a shame.
I guess,
You know,
yeah.
someone should live in that badass place.
But it's all fake too.
It's like
I've
Doctor
watched,
Doom would live there.
I just wanted to go see it, you know. And everything was closed, and all the vistas of it are closed. So I fucking jump a fence. This is top secret, and I jump
Not
a
anymore.
fence, and I run up this hill and like run through the woods, and I'm covered in snow. This is the middle of the winter, and like I'm like wearing these boots that are like way too low for what I'm doing, and I climb up, and there's like all these signs like certain death if you like climb up over this next ridge, and I keep going, and and the sun's going down, it's getting dark, and sure as shit, I fucking climb up, and there's this like ledge straight down probably 100 meters to I peek my head over, and there it fucking is, man. Like it's just beautifully, it's starting to be lit up too, because it's like, you know, right as the sun's setting, and it's like in this bowl, and with forest all around it, and the Bavarian countryside behind it.
Yeah, it almost looks like, how would you even get to the place? When I saw the picture, it looked like
I climbed
it has like a canyon all around it, kind of.
American kid threw 2 women off that ridge this week and killed one of them. Yeah. And there was a manhunt in Germany, and they finally caught him, and it was like American, I don't even know the whole story about this American tourist kid. And it didn't say exactly where it happened, but it was on like a vista overlooking the castle, and I'm like
Probably the spot you were at.
100% sure it's the spot where I was at.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. That is
Wild, man.
Damn.
Wild.
Well, what I was leading to is if there was a place in the world that you'd really love to shoot that's on like your bucket list for geographically speaking.
That's a really good question. I mean, there's stuff I'd like to see, you know, like it's hard to say. Like, I think a lot of the landscapes I'm really drawn to are just like not the like cliche ones that you see in postcards. That said, like I'd like to see Machu Picchu, you know, like I don't know. It's like there's stuff that like there's this area in Brazil with all these dunes that are like filled with water when there's a high tide. The name escapes me right now, but it's like I've seen photos of that, and it looks like a complete surreal
shit.
There's this, then Saudi Arabia's got some incredible landscapes as well. There's these like basically boulders that have been left behind in the desert, and then some of them have been like carved into like little homes and castles and stuff like that. I'd love to check that out as well. I'd like to see Dubai.
It looks pretty crazy.
Yeah, and you know, politics aside, like they literally built like a mega city in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
And it'll make for a pretty cool, like, sci-fi, like, shoot-'em-up movie, I'm sure, 200 years from now. So
definitely.
I'd like to see that.
Some of the buildings are just absolutely nuts.
I'd love to see it from, like, a helicopter, do, like, a helicopter cruise around there and take some photos.
Did you ever do like a safari?
I have.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, interestingly enough, my brother was living there at the time, and I got sent there to shoot for a charity that's affiliated with United Way. Advertising agency sent me there, and I got to shoot.
This is where?
In Nairobi, in Kenya.
Very cool.
And then outside of Kenya is obviously some of the most beautiful safari in the world, and then I got to go a couple days and sleep in a tent and like listen to the jungle wake up, and it was a pretty incredible experience. I kind of like, it was right before I quit smoking weed, and I smoked weed when I was there doing that. And I had a pretty good freak out.
African Bambata.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of nowhere, man. Like, just if that truck breaks down. And and it's an old, like, you know.
Nightfall comes, you start hearing the hyenas.
Fuck. There's elephants, there's cheetahs, there's everything. Like, you're literally in.
Or hippos apparently kill so many people every year.
Dude, it was.
And Nile crocodiles.
It's all there. Monkeys everywhere. Like, weird little, like looks like deer, but like miniature. It's called a dik. You see them everywhere. Like, smallest
crazy.
deer in the world. Like, really cool stuff. And I got to see it like sort of right after a big rainfall too. So all the pools and like the way that all like fills up on the rock formations. It really feels like you're in like the land before time. I remember
cool.
There's one moment where we stopped, and like these two giraffes sort of just like walked right in front of us, and like, you know, it felt like Jurassic Park. Like it felt.
Are you afraid of any animals?
I mean, I don't want to get eaten by anything, but
nothing like fills you with you know, dread if you see it.
I hate snakes, kind of. Like,
Okay.
But like I like if I see a little garden snake or whatever, I'll grab it and like.
But like a cobra's coming at you,
I
or
wouldn't
a
want
rattler. For me, it's sharks for sure.
Yeah, they're scary.
I mean, like, I respect them. I think they're cool animals, but when you see just those gums, all the gums that they're showing off with like rows and rows of teeth, there's no way that will never stop terrifying me a little bit.
Swimming in the ocean's weird.
Just not knowing what's under you too. I think that's a lot of the fear I have. You know, I'm not a big ocean swimmer.
Yeah, I remember one thing that I was listening to this interview recently, and like I don't like it anymore, but I think when I was a kid, I was just too dumb to think about it that way. But like swimming out like 300 meters from shore And just like, you know, I'm not going to collapse, but like just there's not like you have to keep swimming.
Yeah.
If you don't stop swimming, you're going to drown. And like that feeling.
And then you're like, if I have an anxiety attack right now and I start hyperventilating, am I going to drown? Yeah. I think some of that gets me too.
Yeah. Like, so I wouldn't want to do like a big long swim without like a.
Well, I went to Dominican with my family in January, and that was probably the most I've ever swam in the ocean. Because the only time I'd ever been in the ocean before that was on grad trip in Cuba. And I stayed in the pools mainly. But here I went and they had like a little, I don't know if it was a man-made reef or something, sort of right where they wanted you not to swim past, essentially. And in that reef, there were so many cool fish. I saw like a little puffer fish, and you know, so I had a really good time. But I think it's because I knew I was in sort of the safe zone.
I'm down with the safe zone, dude.
Yeah,
I'm 40 years old, and like I know that doesn't sound that old for probably a lot of people, but like,
but jumping off a boat in the middle of the ocean to swim, and then getting stung by a jellyfish and getting paralyzed or having a sharky.
I want safe and chill. Even when I drive now, I want safe and chill. Like, yeah.
Dude, I saw a fucking video of. I don't even advise people watch it because it's pretty messed up. But this dude got eaten by a shark in the Red Sea, right in Egypt, like at a resort. Like, then apparently he was told not to swim, but he did it anyways. I think it's a tiger shark, and it's messed up. You see, he gets chomped, and you kind of see like red fill the water. It's not the greatest photo quality, video quality, but you can see what's going on. Yeah, exactly. And then he starts like kind of wailing and oh my god, because I think he's in shock, but he's starting to realize what's happening. And I don't think his mind at that point is anywhere like, oh, this shark might come back and get me again. I think he's just overwhelmed with having been bit, whatever happened to him. And then everyone watching, there's this woman who just keeps saying, oh my God, the woman who's filming, because no one can help, right? No one's going to jump in. And you see the shark coming around and kind of just comes and takes him by the shoulder and pulls him under. Oh. And then you see the legs come up the other way, like he's getting flipped upside down. And the worst part is at the very end of the video when he's finally under for good, this guy pulls up real slow in a boat. Like, where were you fucking 2 minutes ago, Jerry?
Jesus.
Not to make light of the situation, but I remember thinking, wow, this guy's pulling up real slow.
I hope I don't go that way.
Yeah, that's got to be one of the worst ways to die.
Fuck that.
Or a bear. Fucking bear ripping you apart.
Anything like
anything
that.
Eating you while you're alive is probably got to be one of the worst.
It makes me like, I'm just always, my head always goes to like, if you're in the woods, man, like, or in the water, like anything can happen. My brother just was in the woods and he got poked in the eye by a stick and like almost lost his eye. Just like anything can happen. Yeah, man, anything can happen. It's like we're super vulnerable, right? Like it doesn't feel like right now, just sitting here talking to you, like feel like I'm in total control, but like really, you're just like a fleshy, vulnerable, weak ass human. And
I always think about that when I see someone who's survived like a horrific accident, and whether they lost a limb or whatever it might be, but as bad as the physical damage, I always wonder how brutal it must be to just have to carry the memory of the actual event, Because if you get pinned in a car and crumpled up and so bad that they have to amputate something, it's got to be some of the worst pain and the scariest thing you could ever, just feeling trapped, and I don't know.
I guess after a while it just turns into a memory that you kind of like, it just sort of felt like a dream.
Well, a lot of people say that due to the shock and the adrenaline, they don't even feel the pain, like when they get their arm bit off or something. It's just kind of like not there because their brain is compartmentalizing or something. Anyways, it's a fun, light topic.
Yeah.
Going back to traveling, though, I did want to ask you about your camera pack because I saw your travel setup. You had a video on your Instagram, and I wanted to know if you get paranoid because, if someone loses their bag, it's one thing, but you losing that bag has got to be like in the tens of thousands, I would imagine.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the camera never goes under the plane. It's sort of like a rule of thumb, probably for a lot of photographers. But I was taught that very early on as an assistant. Like, camera never goes under the plane. Yeah. And it's to the point where like I've had to like argue with, you're getting on a small plane sometimes and they do that thing where like nobody brings checked luggage anymore because they charge you for it. So there's never enough room in the bins above your chairs. Yeah. And so then I'm like, I happen to be like one of the last people on the plane, like, oh, sir, sorry, we don't have any more room on the carry-on. We'll take it under the plane at no extra charge and like we'll give it right back to you. I'm like, no, this can't.
You're like, I'll keep this on my lap.
Yeah, like I'll keep this on my lap, or this is going like next to the pilot because this is a $10,000 camera. This is not going under the plane. So that's the big rule. But I mean, at this stage in my life, like everything's obviously insured, but sometimes what's not insured is like the photos, right? So I do get paranoid about like the files. So everything has to be backed up in at least 3 places at a time. Put
that shit on the cloud.
A lot of that's cloud, and a lot of that's like pretty expensive because you're just like, paying for the subscription to have everything backed up,
that digital database.
Indefinitely, yeah. So like everything's backed up in hard disk, another hard disk, another hard disk, and plus it goes up. And that's that. I'm almost more paranoid about stuff like that.
The work.
Than the gear.
Okay.
But,
That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, and at this point, everything's insured. I've been pretty lucky. Like I've had like a tripod stolen like 10 years ago and like some minor shit, but yeah, nothing major. But yeah, the camera never goes under the plane. Never goes under the plane.
Yeah, because I saw a video, you were on Peter McKinnon's YouTube channel, who I was not familiar with, but he's got a lot of great content.
Yeah.
And you guys are using like an $80,000 camera.
Yeah, I mean,
is that nerve-wracking?
It's not. I mean, listen, man. Like, it's a tool. Yes. Like, if I thought that, you know, you're staring at this thing and you're like, this is worth like the price of like a beautiful car or like a shitty house. You know, like almost. It is like a little bit mind blowing, but I have to. You know, I look at it as a tool. I wish that I had that. I don't own it. I mean, it's rented, it's an incredible piece of equipment. Like it's literally probably the best camera in the world right now.
So I saw people in the comments that were debating. Some people were saying that this video is misleading and there's way better stuff for way cheaper. I didn't know enough to weigh in on it.
To be perfectly honest, like I usually read the comments on those videos like the first day it comes out, and then like the millions of comments that come afterwards, I kind of lose track or lose interest. But yeah, I mean, I guess there is some debate about it. I disagree. Like for my personal experience as somebody who looks at images in extreme detail on a regular basis, I haven't worked with anything better. Phase is like absolutely at the cutting edge of making the best of the best.
Phase One, it's called,
Phase
right?
One.
Yeah.
Phase One. Yeah, they're I think they're owned by a Danish company. Or Swedish, I can't remember, but they're the shit. Like it's the best. And
$80,000 though, damn.
Yeah,
if you want to own that, that's pretty bonkers.
I mean, most guys don't, and if you do, it's leased. Like you would lease a camera like that for like I don't know, a couple grand a month.
Well, unless you're like some superstar celebrity with gajillions of dollars.
Sure, or you're like the Smithsonian Institute, right? Where they have
you're
like
gonna need it regularly.
a pile of those cameras to document everything, and like it's the best. And
that's a place I'd love to go. For the record, the Smithsonian.
If you go to DC, they're all free.
Well, and I've heard you can spend like a week in that museum. It's just like exceptionally large.
It's a chain of museums.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's a chain of museums that are all like, you know, the Smithsonian's Institute. So there's like the natural history one, the aerospace one.
They're all close to each other though?
They're all, yeah.
Oh, they're actually connected or no?
No.
Just in the same district kind of?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's the U.S. like really trying to show off like this is the best shit. And like the U.S. is obviously top shit with a lot of stuff culturally, and so it's really their attempt at being like, here is our version of like the Holocaust Museum, here's our version of like our history museum, and well, you know, the States usually go all out when they're trying to show off, so it's worth seeing.
You hear a lot of people complaining about museums and how they have so many like stolen things from other lands essentially during colonialism times and stuff, but at the same time, a lot of that stuff, if you left it in those countries, may have just been pilfered by thieves and stuff, you know?
I agree with you. I don't know. It's tricky though. Because I'm not an expert on the topic. I can't really speak.
Neither am I,
and also, like, I don't know what it's like to be from whatever, some country like Egypt, for instance, and then like all your country's national treasure is in some museum behind lock and key. Exactly. And I don't know what that feels like.
They want to reappropriate it, and like I get that urge.
But I do think that this real desire for revisionism, or like to like go back and wrong the rights of everything that's happened, all the racism that's happened in history. Like you'll just never get to the end of it. So it's a tricky one. Like once you open that can of worms, which we have now,
of course, they're taking down statues.
What's going to happen next? You know, like when you look at like especially a country like Canada, like, and you look at all the last names of every street and every boulevard, you know, who are all these people? Well, chances are a lot of these guys are probably pieces of shit, or
slave owners, or
But like again, like where does it end? You know, and so I think it's tricky. It's hard for me to weigh in on.
Well, and it sounds like a cop out when you go, it was a different time, but there is of course some truth to that in any of these situations that people like. You'll never be able to understand fully what a completely different time in society felt like because you weren't there, and you know.
Yeah,
you can imagine, but you'll never really know what that felt like.
I mean, there's an appetite for it, definitely. Like I think in academia, like I mean, Ryerson changing their name, and now we're going to have the name of one of the main avenues in Toronto going to be changing their name too. And I don't know. I'm not.
It's interesting how these things come in waves, though, because I feel like about 5 years ago is when things really started to pick up. PC culture was really on the rise. Me Too movement, of course, an important movement, but there's a lot of things that got bundled together and everybody was trying to cancel people constantly. And now I'm seeing, maybe it's just me, but I'm noticing more and more people that are feeling exhausted from that, that witch hunt on everything. And
I think that's the risk. That's the risk you run if you really want to like open up that can of worms. And the really scary part to me is like the kickback, and I think the kickback is people being like, well, fuck you, I am going to be racist, or fuck you, I am going to be insensitive, just because I don't want to follow the rules. And like we all have that sort of, especially as like, when I was a young dude, like you tell me not to smoke weed, well, I'm going to smoke weed. You know what I mean?
Smoke it so hard.
Yeah, or whatever, and
rebellious.
And I think that's like that, like society and the government, everybody telling you like you can't, and it's like, well, what are they so worried about? What if and I get nervous.
That's how you start a freedom convoy, Dan.
Yeah, that's what I get nervous about. But who knows? I mean, I think that like at the end of the day, like I'm a fortunate, semi-successful white dude, and like I can't really like speak to that stuff. I don't know what it's like to be like from some marginalized culture,
exactly,
indigenous or whatever.
That's why I always try to have empathy for people that are coming from those standpoints.
I think so too.
I've had so many blessings in my life and come up with great parents and great neighborhood and all that kind of shit.
But the PC shit does get really nauseating.
Especially from a comedy standpoint, I find it's confusing. Not that I do super risque material, but I certainly hear it a lot at the clubs and I support it for the most part. Yeah. I mean, you can be gratuitous for no reason. That's not always great, but I still kind of agree with the freedom to try it out, because so much of comedy is like trying shit out and it's not all going to be perfect. And sometimes, especially when you're trying to push the envelope, you can make the wrong call. It's do you choose to repeat that and keep saying those types of things and not learn from the times where it didn't go well?
My little brush with it is sometimes when like, I do touch on photo subject matter that is maybe like a little bit of nudity or like a controversial person or drugs or something, like when I'm trying to, talk about
it. You get embroiled in it a bit.
And then just sometimes in the comments, and I'm like, man, are you actually offended, or are you just like, do you think you're supposed to be offended?
Yeah.
And my stuff isn't super controversial either, but sometimes when I do see like some of that shit.
People just love to argue on the internet. It's crazy. Everyone feels like they have to pick a side on everything. And that's one of the best things you can do is stop getting in Facebook arguments with strangers and save tons of time.
Fuck, man, I try not to.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard, but it really doesn't ever amount to anything good.
No.
Just waste your time and feel shitty after and be angry at somebody you don't even really know.
I envy people who can actually not read the comments. Like I don't read them like obsessively, but I don't also not ever.
Well, you get curious, of course, yeah.
Yeah, that's how social media works.
But yeah, it can be a dark path to keep going down for sure. I'll switch to that because you just mentioned nudity. That was one of my questions, because I did notice a couple of shots that you did of, very tasteful stuff like someone's butt or whatever. But I still started going like, what's the process like? Is that uncomfortable at all? Because I know you can go into artist mode, but at the same time, at least me, maybe with my OCD, I'm never going to fully be able to separate the fact that I'm a straight man, and if there's an attractive naked woman, some part of my brain is going like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, the 100% honest question about answer to that, I think, is that like you kind of like the minute you start acting like a hornball or being sort of like.
Well, that's not what I was implying. You should do at all.
But the minute there's like any kind of that, and you stray away from like you're a professional and you're just like trying to get the best image, it's gonna ruin it. So I don't know. I hope I do this successfully, but anytime there's like a hot naked chick on set, like it's an absolutely professional environment where you are there to make them feel comfortable, and you're there to get the shot and not, perv out and make anybody uncomfortable. And I think that's the real process. And for my limited experience, because it's not like I'm photographing naked people all the time, but
there wasn't a lot.
But here and there I am, and I think that like the main thing is, from the feedback that I've received from models that I've worked with, is that like, you're really professional, you made me feel really comfortable. And,
nice.
and I think that stems from really, like putting away the like pervy part of my, like, that everyone has obviously, but like putting that and compartmentalizing,
turning off that switch,
compartmentalizing that. And even if it's faking it, just put that away. And like, we're doing a job here. Yeah. I'm here to make this look hot. I'm here to make this look amazing. And I'm here to make you look beautiful, but it's not being
See, I don't know that I'd be able to do that. I would 100% be able to not be creepy, but I'm sure my brain would still be like, oh, wow. Like
that's always there.
Taking account. Well, this is something I talked about with someone recently that I've always kind of felt, and no shame to people who do this, because I'm not trying to call anyone out, but I've always thought it's really weird to be a straight male gynecologist. I always thought that, like, what leads you to that line of work where you're like, and like, I just refuse to believe that a straight man who goes home and has sex with his wife at night can completely separate sexuality when he's looking at a woman's vagina, especially if she's attractive or whatever. And I just go like, why would you even want that job? That just seems so uncomfortable for you but maybe that's just me. I don't know.
I think that there's like, I think that they wouldn't readily admit this, but I think that the same way as when someone like me, my brushes with, working with like naked people, like there's obviously that part.
Or tattoo artists have to do this sometimes, tattoo somebody's,
Terry's going pee.
Oh, Terry, we can pause, bud. Yeah, we should probably do that instead of, okay.
I'll do a pee as well.
Yeah, pee break.
All right.
Okay, we're back from a pee break. Terry had to go, and then we all went. So here we are. Pee break over. Let's get back into it.
We were talking about gynecology.
Yeah, we were. I don't know if we need to revisit that, I guess. It was just something that crossed my mind. I always thought was kind of weird. Well, a couple more things photography-wise I wanted to talk about. I saw that you're like a big Lego fan.
Yeah, of course.
And I was wondering, when's the last time you built a Lego set?
Oh, fuck. This is a good one. My daddy's okay now, but he was super sick a few months ago, and he was in the hospital, and we kind of needed something to pass the time with my mom and my brother, and we bought this Lego set, which is incredible. It's like a cabin in the woods Lego set that came out this year. Cool. I'm not as much of a Lego head as a lot of the people that have gotten in touch with me since I posted my series photographing different Legos and stuff like that. But I think it's like a seminal Lego set that came out this year. It's really important. It they sell out. And we happened to stumble on it at Rito Center when I was here. When my dad was sick, we bought it, and it's beautiful.
How many pieces?
I don't know, but it's like a what
was the price tag?
Like a $300 box or something.
So that's
right?
a big one, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like a cabin. You can remove the windows. You can remove the roof. It's like the details are incredible. Like there's actually one of the guys who lives in the cabin's a photographer. There's like wine bottles. There's a little fried egg in a pan. Like there's like the septic tank stuff. The hookups in the back to like the stovepipe. It's incredible. Wow. So that was the last one I'd built.
That's pretty recent then,
really recently. And prior to that, it's probably been at least 20 years. That's not true. I built one maybe 10 years ago of like a little Ferrari with my mom or something like that. But I do. I love Lego. I
get to build them with my kids sometimes.
Super cool. Yeah, I saw all your minifigures back there. I think that man, that minifigure project came about because there was a poster years ago that I remember seeing in my like older cousin's bedroom, and it was a bunch of like minifigures, and I was like, fuck, I want to recreate that with like modern technology and shoot it for real with like the super camera, and it sort of spawned this like revisiting of all the Lego sets that my old Lego sets that my parents had still in their basement and stuff like that. So
I don't think the Lego will ever go out of fashion. Like I feel like it'll always have an audience.
I want to go to the museum in Denmark. It's in Denmark because Lego's Danish, and there's a museum there that's incredible that was open in the last decade or so, and it's like,
really old too. It's like from the 30s or something.
Really old. Yeah. Crazy. I looked at the history a little bit, and the minifigures, like the actual little guys, they only came out in like the late 70s, early 80s. Prior to that, it was just the Lego sets consisted of building buildings and cars and stuff like that. But the minifigures is sort of like a relatively recent thing, like within our lifetime, I would say. And then it's really exploded, obviously, now where some people just collect the minifigures. And
I saw a video that was like the 10 most valuable Lego figures in the world. It was super interesting.
I would love to watch that.
Because a lot of them were like ones that they gave out at like employee parties, and there's only 25 of them in the world or something.
If you work for Lego, your business card, I don't know if it's still like this, but for a while, you'd have like a minifigure made of your likeness.
Wow.
And that's how that's what you'd give people if you were at a convention. You give them a Lego figure with your email and phone number, I guess, on the back of the Lego figurine that looks like you.
Now you can probably do that easily with like a 3D printer and just make yourself in Lego.
The Lego shit's obviously never ending, but there's guys that make custom pieces, 3D printed custom pieces. So you can really mod.
I've seen some. There's some that are like inappropriate too.
Yeah.
I saw somebody made a set for what's that? Boogie Nights set.
Like a sex dungeon you can do or whatever. Yeah. That's cool.
It's cool, yeah.
So, but
even a lot of those guys are not official licensed products. It's like people who are like, hey, we want this Marvel character, and they're not making them, so we're gonna make it.
That's
and
cool.
You can tell there's like a bit of a quality They're not bad, but
they're not mass produced,
or they don't fit with the other like official accessories and shit like that. They won't. They just feel a bit off. But yeah,
I modded my my cabin a little bit. The one that I got, that Lego kid I got, I put antlers on the wall.
no, it seems fitting. Yeah. I thought you were going to say something weird, like I got a spaceport in the back.
No. I just put some antlers. I thought a cabin in the woods needed antlers on it, so I bought the piece and stick it on there.
Fuck yeah. Shit. Well, this is a fun one. I know that your work, there's a lot of nostalgia and a lot of Canadiana, for lack of a better term. So I was wondering if there is a TV show, a Canadian TV show that's the most nostalgic for you.
That's a really good question. Do you remember the Edson twins? I think the Edson twins. I think the Edson twins was a TVO production. It was about these twins, the guy and a girl. It was set in the late 70s, early 80s. It was on before, like I think it was on at like 7 a.m. before school. I mean, I'm like 2 or 3 years older than you, so maybe it like ended. But the Edson,
I never heard of it.
The Edson twins was when I remember watching, and they would like use science to solve puzzles and crimes and stuff.
So it was live action?
It was like a recorded, no laugh track. It was like a recorded show.
No, but it wasn't animated or
No.
Okay.
It is live action. Sorry. Yeah. It's called the Edson Twins. I remember that really vividly.
I just went to this thing. My kid's school, he's in kindergarten, just about to be done, and they went to the Civilization Museum. And there's this whole exhibit there right now that's all about old Canadian TV shows. So
really?
So they've got like... the Pokeroo is there, and like that treehouse thing from Mr. Dress Up that he always had out in the tree. And there's like one of the Degrassi jackets that they wore. It's really cool to go check out old Canadian TV.
I haven't stepped inside that museum for 20 years probably, so I'd love to check it out. That's really neat. I got to come to Ottawa more. That's like the more time I spend here, I feel kind of foolish for... I mean, we got a cottage sort of 2017, like a family place that's halfway between here and Toronto. And
nice.
I started spending way more time there than, and it's great too, because I went from seeing my parents like 2 or 3 times a year to like 2 or 3 times a month. But because it's closer than Ottawa and it's kind of a halfway point, I sort of, neglected to come here as much as I'd like to.
I love trip, yeah.
Dude, I love this city so much.
Same here.
And I felt that yesterday. We were out for dinner at a place called Parlor. It's this like beautiful restaurant in Westboro, and like I'm just like, and we drove through downtown, and I was showing my girlfriend like Elgin and the market and all that stuff, and I was just like, it's such a great city. I really got to spend more time here, and like just talking about that museum, like I'd love to go and check out the galleries.
There's a lot to do here for sure.
Yeah, and the biking here is awesome. I've been really getting into cycling because I don't get wasted every night anymore. And
there you go. I get really more and more into like the nerdy ass history of Ottawa, and Kelly couldn't give a shit. I've tried to be like, no, we should go and see this or that, whatever, because I read about it online. But I think that's just that thing of getting older too. You start to really like feel attached to a place that you came up in, and you start to want to know about like what happened here before. I saw these, I think I told you about this. There's these old videos on YouTube of like somebody driving basically from around here to downtown, and it's like the 60s, and like there's one part where they go down Clyde or whatever it is. I think it's Clyde. And there's this church that I drive by still, and it looks exactly the fucking same. Yeah. It's so weird knowing it's like 1964 or whatever in this video. I
don't remember if I mentioned this in the podcast that we did last time, but there is a video of Beacon Hill when it's being built.
Really?
Yeah.
Shit, I'd love to see that.
And it's high quality. And actually, Terry, it's a lot of it's around DeSalisbury too. Like a lot of the houses that those like the houses like where
the condominiums.
Yes, those Loyola, houses are they're like you could see them like they're like putting up board like they're building.
Probably like the 70s or something.
I think 60s? It's late 70s. It's called the Beacon Hill Bus because the actual documentary, it's National Film Board. You could look it up. The actual National Film Board. What's really weird about it is that it's HD because it was shot in 35 mil, so like Hollywood movie level quality. And it's about a commuter bus. It's a school bus getting people from downtown to Beacon Hill because at the time that this was being shot, Beacon Hill is at like at the far fringe of like how far the city extended.
There's no Orleans
before they went in past the Greenbelt.
Yeah.
So it's this high quality HD video made by the National Film Board about this bus that takes people from Beacon Hill and commutes them to downtown where they go to work in their office. And it's all really beautiful HD shots of Beacon Hill. And I told the guys at Dominion City Brewing about it because they're super into like Beacon Hill and the history of it and stuff like that too. And anyway, so I think that if anyone want to check that out, like it's there for free. So
it's just on YouTube, or
you go through the NFB National Film Board website, type in Beacon Hill in the search, and I think it's
I'm gonna watch that like tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got one more photography thing I want to ask you, which is if you weren't a photographer, what do you think you would have pursued for a career?
I think at this point, I don't know if I would have answered this question the same way 20 years ago, but I think I would like to maybe be like a product designer or work in design or architecture, something like that.
Something
I think
creative still, yeah.
Something creative for sure. And I think that like I have an affinity for just like aesthetic layout and, you know, what feels good and what looks good. And I think I'm relatively good at it. And I think that I could translate that into, you know, design or, you know, I'm not sure what kind of interior design, landscape design, but I think I could probably excel at something like that nature if I had to do it over.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into the fun, silly, random questions. Because we've done enough reminiscing and talking about Beacon Hill. And what's the stupidest thing you ever did on a dare?
Ooh, I got into a really cold lake. I know it's probably not like as wild as some answers, but I got into a really cold lake with like...
You could get hypothermia. That's risky, I guess.
It was at Mike Schultz's cottage, you know, circa 1999, and somebody dared me to jump into the lake in like early May. There's like definitely still ice in the lake, and I got in and swam around, and I was probably stoned and drunk and stupid.
Yeah, it's still pretty innocent, I will admit. That's not that crazy, but no. Okay, if you had to get a tattoo today, what would it be?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. Well, I'll answer it this way. When I was in Henry Monroe, 13, 14 years old, I really wanted to get a tattoo, and I wanted to get Alien Workshop was the hot shit skateboard brand at the time, and I wanted to get an alien on my leg, and thank God I didn't do that, because right now I'd probably be really embarrassed, or it'd be cool again, because it'd probably look like, you know, so retro. Bad that it's actually cool.
I mean, an alien, yeah, that's not the worst tattoo.
Like a gray alien head on my leg is what I wanted.
There's way worse tattoos.
Really? I thought that was
you could be stuck with like the Tasmanian devil or something,
pretty fucking bad. So I guess this is what how I'll answer it. If I had to get a tattoo again, I would get an alien an alien on my leg, just like I wanted when I was 12 years old or 13.
You don't have any tattoos?
No,
then?
I got no tattoos.
Okay. Wow. What is your most treasured possession?
Right now?
The Lego cabin, is it? No.
That. My most treasured possession. Right now, this is Rolex.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, I went and did something stupid and bought myself a watch.
It's a baller watch, yeah.
I guess, but that's like kind of cheesy answer.
I haven't worn a watch in like 20 years.
I just started getting into them like last year because I was turning 40 and I had a good year, and I'm like, I want to buy myself something cool. I want to buy a Rolex.
It's like 90% about the fashion at this point, and
I guess
technology, right?
Yeah, for sure. But the longer you wear it, the more you sort of stare at it and freak out about how credible the movement is and stuff, and how like the precision that goes into it. But I didn't know anything about watches, and then I like told myself I'm going to buy myself a Rolex, and I didn't know anything about it, but there's like a global shortage of them, and they're impossible to get. So you can walk into any jewelry store and they actually don't have any available, and you basically have to like audition to be eligible to buy a Rolex. I didn't know any of this. So
it must mean they're worth even more now,
I guess. Yeah, so I went in and got shot down, and then I was in Amsterdam, and I was in Brussels, and I went and talked to them there, and they're like, yeah, there's a global shortage. You can't get one. We're not even taking people for the waiting list. And then I did a video with Peter McKinnon where we did a series of watch photography, and I shot this like family heirloom or one of his father's like Rolex, gold Rolexes. I shot it with the crazy camera and did it. And then I was like, now I really want one. And then he pulled some strings because he's got a crazy watch collection. And then
and he's got mad subscribers on YouTube, right? Like almost 6 million subscribers.
Oh, he's a full blown celebrity.
He's an influencer. Yeah.
And so he's a big watch guy, and he pulled some strings, and I went and got one. So I guess that's my prized possession, sort of, but it's just such a corny.
You don't strike me, honestly, as a materialistic dude at all.
I like nice shit, but I'm not like blinged out, like wearing Prada or anything. You know, I appreciate it.
But if you lost it tomorrow, I don't think you'd be like...
If I lost this watch, I'd be pretty pissed, but...
well, that, yeah,
but I think like, no, I don't think that I could be happy with not a lot. I think there's what I really genuinely love so much is... more than anything is, people that have so much skill in terms of making a space beautiful that you can do it in any and I almost love that challenge. Like when I'm traveling around and I see like a really weird looking kind of like old Soviet apartment block with these crazy balconies overlooking like a field in Germany, and I'm like, fuck man, imagine that's your place. It's a blank slate. How are you going to make it cool? What furniture are you going to put in there? And like really like having nothing and like being able to orchestrate a beautiful like
Feng
space
shui.
that people want to hang out in with nothing is something that I love the challenge. I think it's so fun and so interesting. So I think that you're right. Like, I'd like to think I can make a place look cool with not a lot, you know?
Yeah, minimalistic.
With stuff you find on Kijiji, you know, like as a project, like let's build a cabin, but the rule is only stuff you find on Kijiji or for free, you know, or let's build a hangout or a living room with only, you know, pieces that we found at antique stores or something.
Yeah, I guess I was almost surprised that you have a Rolex when I wasn't expecting.
I never thought of myself as like a dude that would have one. I almost kind of like wanted to do the opposite of what I always, you know, I had a couple cool cars and stuff like that, but I'm not like a.
He's wearing the Rolex ironically, guys. It's cool.
I hope so. But the fucked up thing is that I got one and immediately you fall into like, I want another one.
Oh, get a collection.
Just like with
going.
everything else, you know what I mean?
People with their Air Jordans or
I'm
whatever
not
it is.
immune to it, you know?
Hey, I'm not going to judge people for collections. Look at this place. Jesus.
I know. I'm saying, like, I'm not immune to it, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I do have that part of me where I'm like, fuck, I got one, now I want another one. And the same thing with a lot of things, like accolades or, you know, properties or whatever it is. Like, I'm just like, fuck it, I want another one, you know what I mean? And you could drive yourself crazy.
Or we could go back to alcohol with that too, right? I want another one.
And I
This
think
feels good. This dopamine rush. I'm enjoying this.
It's that part of your brain for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Do you have a personal mantra?
No, I don't know.
Or something that you live by, I guess?
I definitely want to try as hard as I can at whatever it is I do, whether it's working out, whether it's photography, whether
Give it
it's
your all.
not being a piece of shit. Like, I definitely think that, like, and it's I don't know, it's such a cliche thing to say too, but like, I think it's just like to try as hard as I can at whatever I'm doing, make it the best.
Yeah.
You know?
That's good advice.
Yeah.
It's a simple answer, but yeah, I'm not going to hate on that. What's been the most humbling moment in your life so far?
Ooh. COVID.
Oh, yeah?
COVID. Watching myself fall apart, I think.
A lot of what you already touched on, I guess. Yeah. Okay.
I think that was the most humbling. Like, it's like what happens when they take it all away? What happens when the emails stop and the phone calls stop and
you don't know what's coming.
And you're a guy that everybody, well, you know, to a point, I think everybody wants a piece of, and like you're in high demand, and like, you know, like the phone's blowing up and you're almost like, fuck, leave me alone. I just want 5 minutes. And just like, oh yeah, nothing.
Yeah.
How about that?
And you're like, what am I without this?
I'm a fucking drunk.
Oh, well.
You know, that's what it was. And I think that was like the most humbling moment. And it really was a kind of like, you know, reassess everything in my life.
Well, yeah, as often happens with humbling moments, it can be like a, you know, springboard for a better future self.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, I'm glad you went through that then in a way, as much as it must have sucked at the time.
Thanks, man.
Is there an album that you'll never get sick of? That you can listen to like, you know, front to back and still hits?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's a electronic artist that I love named Vitalik. He's a French DJ.
Okay.
And he has an album that came out in the late 2000s called like 2008 or something, called OK Pony. And I mean, it's real. If anyone actually goes out and finds it, they're gonna be like, "This guy's fucking crazy." But listens to this over and over. But I feel like,
yeah, electronic doesn't seem like the kind of thing I would always be in the mood for.
for some reason, I can just put it on and just like go, you know. And I think it's a weird answer, but I think that's
It's honest. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check it out.
I love Vitalik, and it's like, yeah,
I've never even heard of him.
yeah.
Cool. If you were a ghost, who would you haunt?
Oh God.
That's a weird question.
If I was a ghost, who would I haunt? Oh man, who would I like? So I would be haunting somebody who's alive right now.
Yeah, and haunting, I don't think necessarily has to mean like you're terrorizing them, but that you're popping up in their life. You could be like Casper style, you know, and just kind of like.
I think Donald Trump. I'm fascinated by that guy. I'm fascinated by his resiliency. Like, he's just like bulletproof to everything. He's like 78 years old or however old he is, and he's got 10 trials going on, and he's still got time to go insult people on national television. And he seems cool as a cucumber sometimes doing it too. And I'd be like, well, what if a fucking ghost was haunting him? Like, he'd probably be fine.
You'd be like, I've got the best ghosts.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, that's like, I guess that's who I would haunt.
Okay, awesome. Is there a terrible flick that you thoroughly enjoy?
Bad movie?
Yeah, like a horrible movie by all accounts.
The most horrible movie is fucking Sleepaway Camp The first one.
I never heard of that.
So Sleepaway Camp was a series of horror movies. It's a camp horror movie. Friday the 13th.
Slasher flick.
Slasher flick.
Okay.
Friday the 13th is like part of that whole family. But Friday the 13th, the first one's actually a really good movie. Despite the fact
Kevin Bacon, right?
Yeah. I think it might have been his debut film.
I think
It's actually a really good movie.
Just like Depp was in Elm Street.
He was.
Yeah.
In the first one,
The first one, yeah.
So, but Sleepaway Camp is not good. And it's so bad that it's amazing. And Sleepaway Camp, like the number 2, number 3, number 4, actually, I think probably did okay in box office whenever they came out. Like they're like known movies.
Well, they probably learned to lean into the satire of it all, right?
The first one's so bad. Like around Halloween, I usually go through like and watch a bunch of like 80s horror slasher flicks because I don't know, it feels good.
Yeah.
But feels like the appropriate time of year to be doing it. But Sleepaway Camp Volume 1 is the weirdest, worst, shittiest movie.
And they were trying to make a scary movie.
They were trying to make a real movie. It feels, check it out. I think knowing the stuff that you're into, I think you'd really find it funny.
I like watching B movies and shit where it's almost like better that it's bad, you know? Yeah. Even like the Evil Dead movies. Like everyone knows Army of Darkness. That was the third one that got, I think, the most.
I don't know Evil Dead that well. I think I've tried to watch
check it out. Yeah, because it was like Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell and maybe a couple other guys in college, and they just kind of like filmed it for whatever money they could scrounge together in this cabin in the woods. And the first one, you can tell they're trying to make like a horror movie, but they go way too overboard on blood and just like the things that are happening. It's just a little bit too crazy, so it becomes kind of farcical when you're watching it. And then the second one, I feel like they leaned into it a little more, and they're like, okay, let's have fun with that. People are coming back. They enjoyed the first one. Let's go into that campiness. And then the third one, Army of Darkness, is the one that arguably I think had the biggest. That one for sure, I think, had a theatrical release, and that one was like full comedy.
And what era was it? 80s?
Yeah, the first two must have been the 80s. I think Army of Darkness, if it was the 90s, it was like 1990 or somewhere around there, like really early, but it might have even been late 80s.
Cool.
Yeah. And, well, they did like a show, though, a revival of him now as like the character is older and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I know there's a TV show now. So, but it's good shit. Yeah.
I'll check it out, man.
There's some weird shit too, though. There's like, obviously all these demons trying to kill these college kids that are away at this cabin for the weekend, kind of simple setup, you know, but there's demons everywhere. And there's like, if I remember correctly, this like tree that's like alive that like rapes a chick. Like
I remember watching this.
Branches.
I've seen this movie before.
That's not a good selling point.
No. But dude, like the scene you're describing,
it's
like,
fucked up.
I feel like I've seen it at some point. I don't know. Maybe in some like older teenagers fucking weird,
or was on TV late or something.
Yeah, like, I don't remember.
I don't even remember. My brother used to show me these when I was probably too young, and that's where I was exposed to it. But
cool.
Army of Darkness, I think I might have watched with my dad because that one's the most tame and it's really just a comedy. That's the one where he, I believe that's the one where he gets his hand cut off, or maybe it happened in the previous movie. But that's the one where he attaches a chainsaw to his stump or whatever, you know.
You saying that again, I feel like I've seen it at some point.
Well, the third one, Army of Darkness, is really cool because the first two are set in like modern day and at this cabin or whatever, and the guy works at like a Walmart type place, and in the third one he somehow gets shunted back in time to like medieval times, and he's got his shotgun and that's pretty much it. And you know, there's this really funny famous scene where he's talking to the peasants and basically trying to get control and saying, like, you see this is my boomstick. And, you know, it's just a very iconic scene. You could look it up, I'm sure, on YouTube. Shit, man, that's pretty much it. I know we've been going for a while. You guys got a party to go to, and I got to go pick up my kids soon. So I have the season 4 question I've been asking everybody this season, which is, what's the shittiest job you've ever had?
McDonald's.
Just hard stuff. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Dude, it was like, fuck, man. Like, I worked at the one in Beacon Hill that's gone now.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was
it's like Arby's now, I think.
Popeye's chicken.
Oh, it was an Arby's for a while. It was. Yeah.
Yeah. And dude, like they made you, this is like right in the age where I had the acne and you had to be clean shaven. So like I'm in the grease pit basically getting covered, you know, like made my acne like 10 times worse. I like missed a really fun summer too. It was like, you know, summer between like grade 11 and grade 12, like tons of keg parties and river parties and all this like awesome shit. And I was like, you know,
You're like working the
for
fry
$6 an
machine.
hour, working for $6 an hour, working the fry machine, like getting tortured over there. And I got fired.
How?
They said they saw me smoking a cigarette on my shift, and it was actually bullshit. I didn't do it.
Inside the restaurant?
That's
or
what they
just,
said. I was like, no, I didn't. Yeah.
And they couldn't even prove it?
No, but it didn't matter.
Brutal.
Yeah. So I got all that, you know.
Some dog shit.
Some dog shit. But
Well, yeah, I imagine
for
your
the best.
skin probably didn't get any better because you were probably eating the food too, right? You got employee discount or something?
So, dude, it was when they still had the pizzas.
Oh, yeah, McDonald's pizzas.
They still
I
had the
remember that.
pizzas, and like they had the chicken nuggets, and what we do is we take the pizza and turn it into like a taco and put the chicken nuggets on the middle, and then it would be like a taco pizza with the chicken nuggets. Like, dude, it's horrific amount of like, you know, whatever's in that, but like it tasted amazing. Obviously, I was showing up at shifts high, and like that's like the first thing I would eat, and then like
Working at a job like that when you're high is pretty sweet.
I guess so, but it's also high stress. Like, it was actually one of the hardest jobs I've ever had. Like thinking
Like
about
when there was a rush or something.
Oh, dude, and
Yeah.
like some of them at like 6 a.m. shifts. You know, when you're
Yeah.
like 15 years old, waking up at like 5 a.m. and like going up the hill to work at McDonald's for 8 hours. Like, it was really hard.
I worked around that age in the Saint Laurent food court. I probably talked about this on the show, but it was a place just called Hot Dog.
Really?
Yeah, it was like this independently owned place that was actually owned by the guy who owned the Beaver Tails place, which was also in there. And he was this Dutch entrepreneur or whatever. And eventually when business got worse, he merged them. So it was Hot Dog and Beaver Tails in this weird hybrid place. It was the weirdest job you could possibly have. Hey, where do you work? Hot Dog?
I work at Hot Dog.
Like, is that what you serve? Well, yes, but it's also the name of the place.
So here's another thing I wanted to talk about. Like, what's up? Like, you know, these malls are like hanging on by a thread. Like, I walked into Place d'Orleans like 10 years ago, and it's like hanging on by a thread. Like,
Yeah.
I can't imagine what it looks like 10 years after that. Like,
I was there not long ago, yeah.
yeah, like I wonder what is the deal, like, because it's like I remember when these places were new, like these cathedrals of commerce built like right in like the middle of the 90s, like the state of the art, like shooting fountain in the middle.
Coolest place you could be.
Coolest place you could be. The teenagers are there. The fucking skate shop was in there, like
Yeah.
Foot Locker and all that stuff.
Pet stores, which we don't have anymore.
Yeah.
Probably for the best, but still. I have nostalgic, like, positive memories of pet stores as a kid.
Yeah, and it's like barely alive. Like, I'd love to, I don't know, convey that sense of nostalgia somehow photographically. I think I don't know.
I will admit that I'm still like a mall rat. Like when I go to the mall when we have to get something or the kids want to go for something, like I low key still love it. I just love all the people walking, the people watching.
Yeah.
And the one thing I will say though is, the stores are way shittier than when we were kids.
What's happened in
all clothes and shoes and
What's happened in Toronto, and I'm sure it's the same case here, where there's like one or two malls that have transitioned into being like a luxury, you know, like there's like the Apple store, and there's like a Prada store and Louis Vuitton, and a, you know, like a jewelry store, and like you know, like, or like up until recently
higher
like
end
Nordstrom's or whatever,
Yeah.
and then there's like, so there's those malls, and then like the kind of anything else is just like turned into this, like half the mall's a gym, and then like half of it's abandoned, or it's like they're selling like fake purses. It's like that's like sort of, there's no in between. It's like either it's like for billionaires or like or it's like, you know, borderline like a bazaar, you know.
Yeah, totally.
It's weird.
I miss carpets in malls too, you know.
Do you remember
Probably gross, really, but
when Place d'Orleans opened, they still had smoking inside.
No, I don't.
And they used to have
remember
the ashtrays filled with sand, like by all the benches and stuff like
crazy.
that. I vividly remember that.
Yeah, that's the few years difference in our age.
It's
like
true.
A lot of things change. When I was in grade 9, just starting to smoke cigarettes, I remember going to like Pizza Hut with my friends and smoking in there.
There's ashtrays in the Pizza Hut for sure.
Yeah, and like Timmy's, I think you could still smoke.
Absolutely, you could smoke.
It was
yeah.
gone not long after.
A lot of that stuff's really valuable too, like the McDonald's ashtrays and stuff on eBay. They're,
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
valuable being like, you know, $80 or something, but like the like little disposable tin ashtrays from McDonald's, and a lot of that stuff is
The fact that there were smoking sections, especially in a place where you're going to eat, is mind blowing
They
to me.
still have
to
it in the
think about.
States though, man. Like
It's
you
so weird.
still have it. You go to Las Vegas, you can like, I remember being there like relatively recently when I was shooting that those wax portraits of Madame Tussauds.
Yeah.
And I remember being in the casino, like brand new escalator, smoking a cigarette, going down an escalator,
That kind of almost makes sense just because it's Vegas, it's a casino.
but it's statewide. And I think Texas might have it too. And I think up until recently Florida did too. Like you're like literally still
Texas does, because whenever you watch the Kill Tony shows and stuff, they're
People
just
smoking?
smoking butts on
Yeah.
stage. Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, yeah, to each their own. If that's the kind of environment you want to be in, that's cool. But in specific to eating, it always seemed really weird to me.
gross.
Because no one who isn't a smoker should have to have their olfactory senses bombarded with something that's generally not considered to smell very good while they're trying to eat, which is largely influenced by your sense of smell. You know
I'm
what I
old
mean?
enough to remember it on planes too.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah.
Or like doctors smoking.
Dude. I still remember the sound because you weren't allowed to smoke until the seatbelt sign was turned off. So as soon as you got to like cruising altitude, the seatbelt sign comes off, and you can just hear everybody lighting up, the Zippos clinking, and then like the
All
of
the
like
coughing that
yeah.
ensued.
And like you're on a steel tube in the sky, and there's a smoking section and non-smoking section on a plane.
That's so, yeah. I mean, just the concept that they're going to be able to contain like a gas essentially is
It's fucked.
kind of ridiculous. You don't have a force field, Jesus. Anyways, well, we'll wrap it on that.
All right, man.
McDonald's is terrible, and
I
you
learned
for
a lot.
firing Piotr for not
Yeah.
smoking.
Saved my life. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
man.
high
Do
five,
this
man.
Anytime, dude.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll make a return appearance some point down the line. And I'm really glad to hear your dad's doing better too, man.
Thank you very much.
Although I hope that doesn't keep you from coming to Ottawa.
No, I'll be here, man. Thank you for having me. And Terry, thanks a lot
Yeah,
for taking
thanks,
time out
Terry.
today. Really nice to reconnect.
Right on. That's
Peace.
it. Peace.